起，我在这里与他初次相见，给他做了最老少的大炒饭。他说：“
现在站在你面前的是2015年 LSPL 春季赛冠军，2015年 LPL 夏季赛亚军，2016年 LSPL 夏季赛冠军，2017年常规赛 MVP，2018年常规赛 MVP 第2名。”
我说：“
对币加几个鸡蛋，上骷髅。”
后来他成了2019年的常规赛 MVP，2020年的常规赛 MVP 第2名。
2021年常规赛 MVP，S9 冠军中单10大选手Doinb。
后来他走了，我这里最老手的大炒饭是否也没有人爱吃了？
如果很健康，还有就是牛蛋。
杨姐，你必须8号比赛，你把这个带上。
硬币哥，2月8号下午5点，我们联盟竞技场等你。
4年前，我在这里与他初。
What a
Man,
fun
some egg
video.
fried rice looks so good right now.
I know, dude. I would kill for some fried rice. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching in the world. Welcome to the LPL English broadcast of FunPlus Phoenix taking on Ninjas in Pajamas. My name is Rafa. I've got Rude Dude on the caster desk with me. I'm super excited because we are good friends in real life, and we've, you know, always admired each other's broadcasting work over the years. We met, I want to say, late 2020, maybe 2021 early on. And we've just been waiting for a prime time to get on the casting mic together. And lo and behold,
4 years.
It took us 4 freaking years, but we made it, baby. And we've got a banger on tonight's show because not only it's the return of Doinb in his second series of the LPL Split 2025, but it's also him taking on his former org, one he made a big name for, not just himself, but for the org itself in the FunPlus Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the history of Doinb and FPX will be written and etched in the history of League of Legends until, you know, the game ends. And the story of these two now getting to play against one another is certainly one that we're going to get to tell and going to get to relive as well. Seeing how they're going to bear going up against one another as well. FPX's successes post Doinb certainly not something that we've been particularly seeing a lot of, but as we can tell by the groups so far, NiP just 1-0 up in their group at the minute, but that 1-0 against Invictus Gaming, Rafa.
Yeah, right. And this Group D is still kind of wide open in the possibilities of who could be advancing out into the playoffs for our first split. Whereas if you've missed out on some of the other action that we've had so far in our first split before the Lunar New Year break, Group B has been decided in terms of which 2 teams will be escaping the group with Weibo Gaming and JDG. Group C also has its 2 seeds in Billy Gaming, aka BLG, and Thundertalk Gaming. But the number 1 and 2 seeds have not been determined yet. And then for Group A, it's just anyone's legend that is qualified so far. Still yet to determine who will be the other seed. But today, we could be qualifying Ninjas in Pajamas to playoffs off of a victory over FunPlus Phoenix. But as we've got a lot to cover and very little time before we get into the 1v1 for the side select, we're just going to start running through all of our assets for the show today. FunPlus Phoenix, this is our roster: Sheer, Sorrow, Care, Bat, and Jue. And this is, just to remind everyone at home here, Rude, this is once again another full rebuild for FunPlus Phoenix outside of Care, still the remaining mid laner for this team for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, and the mid laner that replaced Doinb as well on this FPX roster. So, again, like that little bit of history here, certainly something that we want to be keeping our eyes on. And Mark, you had a fun fact about FPX before we came onto the show. I don't want to steal it from you. If you wanted to relive that, retell that to give a little bit of gauge. Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely get into that a little bit later. Just want to show everyone once again, Ninjas in Pajamas, the roster is Shanji, Aki, Doinb, Leave, and PP God. My eyes are, while definitely have a lot of focus on the mid lane and the history, as Doinb was the original mid laner for FPX and got them their first LPL title, not just for Doinb and all of his teammates themselves, but for the first in FPX's history as an organization, also got them their first world championship in their first appearance at Worlds for all 5 individuals and an org. So, you know, it just goes to show how important Doinb was to the legacy of FunPlus Phoenix and how intertwined it is. But even more important, that the fact that Care was the mid laner that was sitting behind Doinb. So then once Doinb left FPX, Care was the immediate call-up directly from FunPlus Phoenix's academy team, but they have not found nearly the same highs as Doinb did when he was on FPX.
No, it's been a rocky road. I think that our statistics are that they've managed to take 2 playoff series in totality since Doinb left, so certainly something that they are obviously looking to improve upon. And here they've got their work cut out. I think that this NiP roster working up against FPX, NiP should be coming in as, you know, a little bit of the favourites for this series, having already taken down IG, and FPX struggling as well in their opening series versus RNG definitely doesn't bode as well for the FPX squad. But obviously the teams have walked out. We are looking at taking this 1 versus 1 in the not too distant future, so we'll have to see who it is that both of these teams have sent, who's representing for the 1 versus 1, Rafa, because side selection in the series like this, I'm thinking it could be relatively important.
Yeah, well, for FunPlus Phoenix, they've already tried using Care, at least in terms of the 1v1 for their last series against RNG. And Care opted in for the Lucian matchup, even though, unfortunately for him, it was not victorious. I think he went up against Tong Yuan's Victor. And in theory, you know, marksman into mage, you should be able to get the push, you should be able to get the harass off, but I think, you know, there's just a couple moments where Care
in
was
reality,
not able
Victor's
to...
broken. All right, let's keep it a buck.
Baby. Yeah.
Okay, we're into the draft already. Mel Global Band, worth remembering.
Check this out, Root. So FPX is sending in their top laner Sheer, but Ninjas in Pajamas sending in mid laner Doinb for the 1v1.
Okay. Hands checking, warming up for both of our, for either solo lane then. So top versus mid, and that does have to slightly change how you'd go about the banning phase, I would suppose. I think that banning out Doinb has proven already to be quite the monumental feat. So, you know, the idea of just getting 3 bans, not necessarily the greatest, but you do get to take out some of those really OP 1 versus 1 champions, and you can already see a little bit of an adaptation from both of these sides. It's, okay, top laners versus mid laners coming through on the ban list.
Already eliminating some of the typical picks, as you already called out. Renekton, Cassante, and the Corki from Doinb. Oh, man. Did he already slam that in?
He did. That's double lock, baby. Kled versus Jace.
Oh, this is awesome. I was not ready or prepared for a Kled 1v1. You know, Sheer's not really breaking the meta form with just, you know, going back on the Jace. I do want to bring up to everyone, and this will be something that we constantly go back to. We are playing on the new patch, which is 15.3 or the however
it's actually 25.1.3.
I'm not saying that, bro. That's too that's too many numbers. Just call it 15.3. We all know what, you know, that is supposed to mean, but 15.3, a lot of champion changes. One of them is pertaining in this 1v1, Jace losing a bit of base damage on all of his hammer form abilities. Not the E, but hammer form Q, hammer form W, and then a little bit of base damage off the top from his shock blast. But he did get a bonus AD buff, trying to incentivize, you know, Jace to stop building tank and go back into, you know, the Yumu's Ghostblade full lethality build.
And this is, other than the LCK, I believe happening right now, going to be one of our first glimpses at this new patch as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not those have been successful. I'm looking at the build path so far, and it is not, decidedly not successful.
I'm not gonna lie, Rude, when I saw the base numbers nerfed, I didn't think that it was going to be enough to dissuade people. I think at max rank, you're losing 40 base damage, which in the long run, if you have a lot of ability haste as a tank, and then you get the bonus AD and you still build something like Shojin, I think that it gets made up for. And for Sheer here, in this 1v1, all he cares about is out-sustaining the Kled and the all-ins, and that's why he's got Warden's Mail and a cloth armor.
Nope, and I think that'll do him pretty well, to be honest. We're looking at the ability to just make sure that the Kled doesn't get on top of him and one-shot him. We've also already seen a Kled in these 1 versus 1s. It was unsuccessful, didn't find the win. So whether maybe it's just this secret pick that the 1v1 players know a little bit about but haven't quite been able to replicate successes on, we'll have to wait and see. But obviously moving into the 1v1, Doran's Blade double opener for Doinb should give him that little bit of early power. And I feel like with Kled, you're going to have to be sacrificing CS. You are looking for that couple kills, maybe the tower, or just the all-in when the ring closes. So Doinb biding his time for the moment, just making sure that he's not getting too chunked out. That Skull is also nice and healthy. And Sheer here already with a decent push going down. Might already look for that early reset or another cloth armor mark.
Man, if it's just full armor stacking Jace, I mean, I get it. It's a legitimate way to win the 1v1, but it's not the most exciting way to win the 1v1, you know? I want blood! I want carnage between these two players.
No, absolutely. And I think maybe they're just giving us a taste, a savor for what we'll get to see in the best of 5, and we can only hope that that's the case, as we've already got Doinb now looking for that initial all-in.
Doinb going for the charge, but he's dismounted and he's lost Skarl, and Sheer is now putting him into the dirt, popping the ignite, but the minion blocked the accelerated shock blast, and Doinb thought that the shock blast was actually going to go through, which is why you saw the barrier initially popped. So it's all summoner spells gone from both of these guys.
And it's important to remember, folks at home, that these minions have allegiances. Remember, there are red side and blue side minions. That red side minion was an absolute homie. Walked in, tanked the shock blast, made sure that Doinb wasted his barrier, but that he didn't take the damage anyway. So you got to be keeping track of where those minions are and making sure that you're not firing them into or firing your shock blasts into those.
And thankfully now for Doinb, he's gotten a chance to remount. Skarl has come back, no longer in a cowardly mood. Will give Doinb the chance to stack this wave, crash, and get a base off.
Okay, but you can see already there's a massive wave under the turret. She has that experience, or CS lead, excuse me, and that is not going to be matched at all by Doinb. So the recalls are going to be favourable for the Jace. Phage coming out of the base, whereas we may be able to see, honestly, plated steel caps, yep, cool, and then a little bit of health just to go alongside it.
What does this actually build into? Because
it doesn't.
I think...
But the idea is that you never get into that stage of the game anyway.
True. You don't worry about building a full item. You're just stacking a bunch of defensive stats.
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll probably get one more recall if like my 1v1 meta analysis has been appropriate enough so far. There's normally 2 recalls that come through. Now, occasionally you'll get full items if you go to the hyper end of a 1 versus 1. But what we've typically seen is 2 recalls, and sometimes you'll get a full item, sometimes you won't. So you're just picking up the components that are most valuable and the most cost effective early on. Because remember, the way that they changed 1v1ing is so that, or the way the timer of the ring is that you very rarely reach 100 CS.
True.
Just because of when the ring actually closes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, you know, does Doinb want to wait until, you know, the PUBG ring closes in on these two, or does he just want to just force the all-in again? In my mind, you don't want to let Sheer continue stacking all these defensive stats, especially when you don't get access to armor penetration anytime soon.
No, it's a cost-benefit analysis that Doinb has to do. I think that waiting for the ring to close is in Doinb's favor. Obviously, he is only melee, so the shorter that arena gets, the less space there is for Sheer to kite around is going to be the most beneficial.
Dang, but this just feels bad for Doinb getting completely out-traded by Sheer. He's building all the damage items, and yet Sheer is building all the tank items, and this is just, you know, how it plays out. Being able to sustain through the fight thanks to Conqueror. And Doinb, once again, is dismounted. I don't know if he's going to get Skarl back in time as Sheer blasts him in the face again, pops the ignite. Doinb is doing everything that he can to see if he can work up the courage meter once again, but that's not happening. Sheer's going to claim the first kill of the series.
Okay, and then should be able to get maybe a plating here and then a recall, so he's going to have so much gold to go back to base with. I mean, Doinb at this stage, not gonna lie, he's pretty cooked. I think his only hope is another 1 versus 1 that he can time appropriately when the ring closes, but even still, the idea of looking to beat down on... Alright, okay, Sheer, a black cleaver in the inventory for the Jace, with an extra little bit of armor as well. It feels pretty low chances that Doinb's gonna be able to come out with this one.
Two things that I find funny. One, after the 1v1, you can see all of Doinb's teammates kind of just like, I don't know if they were, you know, giving him some slack or whatever, or like smack talking him, but he definitely was having a fun time. He's like, hey guys, what am I supposed to do? Like, this guy's full stacking armor. Now he's got a black cleaver. So even if I try to build defensively, he gets to shred through my armor first. But thankfully, Doinb's now got a black cleaver of his own. We're going to see how much that actually pays off.
Okay, so we have got Black Cleaver versus Black Cleaver. We've got double Dorans versus Warden's Mail, plated steel caps, and cloth armor. Those are your extras. Those are the different bits. And as well as that, there's a 2-level lead for Shia as well. So Doinb needs to catch himself up on some experience. Probably just going to be able to catch level 11. But that is about it. And you can see the final resets now coming through. So Shia going to get back, probably get, a potion in the inventory. So one of those elixirs for the final fight. Looks like Doinb's doing the same thing. You can see the fire starting to engulf the sides as well as Doinb immediately sort of hopping out. A couple cloth armors to get him a little bit patched up for the road. And I think as well, the plated steel caps, not just for the armor that they're giving, but the little bit of movement speed as well. This is boots versus no boots, and range versus melee, having that movement speed could be all the difference.
But how much will the boots difference be once the ring is so close that you can't literally run away and escape it, and you're just forced to duel each other to the death? Maybe that's the gamble that Doinb is going to be playing for. Doinb did dink. Yeah, he's level 11 now, so he can pop the charge and get the maximum value out of this 1v1 so far. The shredding is kind of working in Doinb's favor, and Sheer is forced to retreat back into the rune for the healing, but Doinb is losing to the ignite, pushes Sheer out of the way.
Not again.
Doinb remounts!
Not again.
Wins the 1v1. That's the power of courage right there.
The remount and the final kill coming through.
Dude, he's so
Doinb just
fired
knows the
up.
limits. Like I say, you just gotta wait for the ring to close, and then where does Shia go? He kites back, he ends up in the fire. That's a little bit of extra help. I think what might have been able to happen there was a 96 CS Jace on my screen. Maybe when he realizes that the 1v1's doomed, he could have just queued in to kill the range creeps and try and one on the other buyout. But credit to Doinb, right? Looks like he was getting absolutely hamstrung that entire game. Comes out with the win anyway.
I am just absolutely enthralled with Doinb's energy. Like,
Yep.
we don't get to hear Doinb, you know, through the feed, but I can feel his excitement just through the camera. Like, I am so hyped right now. So now,
Such an emotive player that you can feel how he feels just by
Doinb
watching.
pop-offs are the best. Like, I could run through a brick wall if I see Doinb pop off. I mean, if I'm having a bad day and then I tune in and I see Doinb just having the blast of his life, I'm ready to take on the world.
That's the power that he has, and I think that's why it's so refreshing to see him back in the LPL as well. And I mean, you know, you're looking at this from a alternate perspective, from the FPX perspective. You know, you're devastated because you got to deal with playing against this guy who's got so much raw power in his own capability. And looking at the champions that he's played as well, Lee Sin, Akali, Jace, Ryze. Now the Jace in the mid lane maybe not so you know, scary. Maybe the Akali something that we're used to, but Lee Sin, we have not seen mid lane for a little bit of time. It's not standard. The Ryze as well feels very pocketed, very Doinb-esque CS hack Ryze moment, you know. So that's a unique champion pool that Doinb has to offer you.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where we look at this being Fearless draft and this being the first year where globally Fearless is being implemented across every single region. We asked ourselves, not as just, you know, casters, but as League of Legends esports fans, who is going to really embrace the spirit of Fearless draft? Because what has really happened with Fearless globally is that most teams are just going down a tier list of similar archetype champions. So yes, you're not seeing the same champion every game, but you're still seeing similar champions fill a certain role. So like, oh no, you don't get Vi after the game 1? Okay, well now you play Xin Zhao. Oh, you don't have Xin? Now you play Nocturne. You know, they're all similar. And the same thing with mid lane. You just go down like the list of mages or marksmen are kind of available during that time. Doinb says, screw that. You're playing Aurora? I'm playing
I'll
Ryze
take
for
Lee
that.
Sin.
I'm playing Lee Sin into Azir. Like, this guy is freaking awesome in terms of entertainment value, but also he has the chops to pull it off.
Exactly, and that's what makes I think this mid lane matchup really interesting in this series. Obviously, Care coming in to replace Doinb when Doinb left FPX. That little bit of history between the two players, the two teams as well. And Care has got a very difficult task ahead of him if he's to be able to in any way contain Doinb in this matchup. But worth looking quickly, Mel obviously going to be global banned for the first couple of weeks of her release, and the first pick Cassante for NiP into Shanji's hands. I think that Shanji was a bit of an unsung hero on NiP in their series versus IG, obviously playing against the Shy. Sort of the same job that we had for Care this game applied to Shanji last series, where we were just hoping that he could keep the Shy in his place, and for 3 out of 4 games he did exactly that.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things in that series too is that Shanji did such a great job of being a distraction and just giving NiP so many windows to secure important objectives for themselves. But we are in the draft phase. Cassante being locked in for Shanji, pretty standard blind tank top lane pick to open up space for other of his teammates to lock in certain champions that they want to see what FPX is showing before they go ahead and commit. And what FPX is showing right now is, once again, pretty standard. Jace that could be flexed between solo lanes, Corki that could be flexed between Care or Bat. More than likely, this probably will end up in the hands of Care, since even though they did lose their game against RNG, it was a massive game 4, and he was putting out a ton of the team's damage share.
Yeah, and I mean, the flexibility on red side just continuing to be offered, right? I think that the Aurora as an answer, it doesn't mind playing against the Jace or the Corki. You're able to pretty much match their ranges. You're going to deal a lot of damage to them when they're in the laning phase. And I like the Viego for Arki here as well. Getting to see him on these reset champions once again, making sure that he can continue his success from the previous series, completely manhandling Jijia in the majority of those games. And for FPX as well, I like the idea of taking this Sejuani quite early on, to be honest. You're looking at the ability to keep some person locked down and in place. If I find a stun onto Doinb, I've got the damage, the follow-up to try and pick that off, right? The long-range poke already for FPX is actually quite high. I throw a Glacial Prison at somebody who's caught out. I've got rockets, Frost Bomb into Accelerated Shock Blast. A lot of tools already for FPX that they can use to pick a target out.
Yeah, and I'm curious if FPX are, you know, just based on the 1v1, it doesn't seem like Sheer's going to, or whoever is piloting the Jace is going to veer away from tank Jace, but, you know, Corki Jace, if Jace builds full AD, that's powerful poke and siege composition foundation for themselves there. Now, one thing I do want to note, we didn't catch this in our pre-show, but Shadow is actually playing for jungle tonight instead of Sorrow. And just, you know, for those that are not familiar with the two players, Sorrow was brought up from FPX's academy team and is a rookie, but I think in this series, a loss would mean the end of FPX's split, and they don't want that to happen, and so they have to bring in someone like Shadow who is more experienced.
So a loss here for FPX in this series doesn't outright eliminate them. It does pretty much sign their fate. The only other way that they get in is through a series of 1-3 or 1-2 tiebreakers where all teams lose to NiP, but then trade wins against each other. So there is still that small possibility that they all end on 1 and 2, and then a weird tiebreaker ruling will probably decide who goes through. But either way, a series that you do want to win, without a doubt, right? You don't want to be leaving it to the fates of A, other games, and B, tiebreaker scenarios as well. But for FPX, they continue to double down on now having a decent frontline for these pokey champions. The Rel as a secondary form of engage as well, alongside that Sejuani. And for me, for FPX, just about rounding out what they're going to look for as that magic damage source, whether they want it in the top lane, whether they want it in the mid lane, or whether they want it in the bot lane as well. Their flexibility is still fully open, and that's meant that NiP need to play with that in mind when they're looking for these picks. I love the Leona already. Typically when you see these AP champions, they are going to be immobile, and Leona is just so good at picking off those immobile mages.
Yeah, just a really big fan of how FPX have hidden their cards so far, and that flexibility now could give them the edge in who they are sending into the Aurora, as Care has decided he's gonna go with the Victor, gonna try to match Mage for Mage, something with a little bit of extra team fighting power, and trying to match the utility that the Aurora can cause just through in pure disruption. But this does mean that the Jace ends up top lane, and then Corki will be going to bot in the bot.
Yeah, I mean, Jace versus Cassante, honestly, very typical matchup that we're going to get to see. It's similarly down on that bot side. I'm quite happy with the Misfortune pick specifically for Leave. Corki, one of these bot lane AD carries that is actually very aggressive, can trade very, very well in the level 1 through 3. The added damage onto Valkyrie as well, something that we might not get to see, but something that really helped him out in those trades that you're looking for, those really big all-ins. But Misfortune, a champion that can match that, which is always very important. So going to be looking down at that bot side as well when you've got two really hyper-focused towards those early game AD carries, because Leave and PP God were absolutely destroying the IG bot lane in 2 versus 2. Every single game, Leave and PP God were coming out with advantages in a bot lane matchup that we were sort of unsure about, not certain where to go. And one of the stories that I'm going to be looking at just sort of subconsciously is this Leave redemption arc, because coming out of EDG was touted as this really high prospect, then came in and wasn't quite living up to his potential, but so far on this NiP roster hasn't had those same shakes as, yes, Costa, a couple of situations where he's still getting caught out on mid waves, but overall his performance in the IG series led them to victory.
I know that in the pre-show we put a lot of focus in the two mid laners, since they have such a, close relationship in terms of working together within the same org, while Care was behind Doinb as he was in the main roster for FPX for so many years before then leaving. But I kind of want to jump on the Leave and PP God train with you for this particular game, because that big surprise of Leave and PP God not only getting the better of Galameko, but multiple times and isolated solo kills against those two, against players who we have such high respect for just based on their international accomplishments. Now, it's a very aggressive level 1 that FPX have gotten for themselves. They got decent chunks out of a couple members, but the most, no one burned any sums. They just got some deep vision into this red quadrant.
Yeah, so it's looking at where the wards are, and importantly, the wards are traded, so both teams are going to be looking for who is lane swapping. Are we going to get Australia lanes, standard lanes? Those wards in the respective, between the tier 1 and tier 2, are at an attempt to see who is going topside, who is going bot side. Now, looking at it, it looks like NiP won't have been spotted moving the Misfortune up to this top side. FPX now, they see Shanji,
and they're going to jump on him. There's the crash down. Bot gets a decent amount of damage thanks to the shred of that E. And Shanji, no choice, forced to flash.
Yeah, and I mean, the goal of this situation is to deny experience from top lane. It's what the looks like for you as a team that is initiating or that is dealing with a lane swap. And if you're taking this adaptation where they're going lane both Care and in the mid lane, there's nobody on this top side for the MF and the Leona to dive, so they're just going to try and trade the plates, but ultimately fortification means that this bot side is going to go down much quicker, and the FPX should be coming out with that gold advantage. My concern is the experience spread among 4 people, depending on if Shadow wants to come down as well, and that costs Bat and Jue as well.
Which is why you see Shadow trying to stay away from the minion wave and just use his presence to zone Shanji away, and by keeping the enemy top laner at level 1 without a flash, it is just so hard for Shanji to actually get anything. Now, he is playing Cassante, so he will still be pretty useful if he's down on an economy and levels, but you definitely don't want to be receiving this treatment for too long in this early laning phase.
No, definitely not. And I mean, the graphic is actually very useful. You can see what level they've got. Obviously, Sheer working his way towards level 0 experience at all this game. So the question becomes, how long can they keep this going, and is it going to cost them? And again, thinking about what that gold looks like and what does this translate to for teams looking at those neutral objectives to begin with. So frequently we see Robson, but I think that through this early stage of the game, it's going to be about swap out these lanes now for FPX to get that early game advantage in the neutrals.
Sure thing. And Care might be in trouble trying to crash this wave, but Doinb's now going to set up a gank alongside Aki, and he's just got nowhere else to go. A clean route from Aki, and that sets up first blood for Doinb.
and it's very easy. Hold on, skirmishing down on bot side. They're desperately trying to get Shanji a little bit of experience, but just by looking at the goal, out that first blood having gone down, you can see that there's a lot of turret gold to the back of FPX. You know, only 1 plate taken on that top goes down on the bot side. They were able to take 3 plates back down, and just as somebody made way into it, you might get a glimpse of experience. He's forced back up to the... He's got to lane versus the Jace, who's, you know, float on him already.
Yeah, couple things. One, Shanji has not gotten a single CS, and I think barely any experience. And I almost feel like
no XP,
he knew the camera was looking at him, which is why he threw up the emote. But I also just want to make sure you know, Rude. Oh, hang on. He might got some action here. The cleanse forced out of leave as he got a little too close to the turret. Jue was trying to stun him under the tower, but no harm, no foul. Just now down to summoner spell as Jue might maybe look for a Q flash setup, but leave predicts it, and they make Jue look silly. PP God forcing him to flash away.
Okay, and actually, Jue thought about the flash, was looking for the flash, but actually didn't have the range for it. The angle on it was looking like he was trying to interrupt the flash on the Misfortune, but it means that the Rel has to back away also. PP God stood present, ready to stun up on the engage. And overall, we're seeing FPX largely new to the top lane, have that advantage down on the bot side, but the Misfortune coming back out now that those resets have fully come through, with that Rectrix looking to make her way back out to that top side. And once again, this is a bit of recompense, a little bit of help for Shanji maybe, because they're looking for those grubs.
Might come down to who has push in this mid lane though too. And thankfully for Care, if we remember his series game 3 against RNG just before the Lunar New Year break, he burned flash. Oh, hang on. Doinb, well, that's the flash gone. But the nice thing for FPX is that Care didn't burn flash in the previous gank attempt, which is what really caused the spiral of Care getting completely zoned out of multiple XP and just not having the greatest game 3 against RNG, and it really put FPX behind. This time, it did come at the cost of Doinb's ultimate, but Care is still doing a decent job of making sure not to fall too far behind. It does end up in grubs going over to NiP, but FPX will trade the dragon for it.
They are getting continual as well. So this Corki is going to be quite the threat to think moving through this game. Has opted into the tier, so get up nice and early. There are rumors as well of this new where you just tier, you go Essence Reaver in sort of C for you. Takes about the same amount of time, and it is a lot more expensive in terms of a build path to go for, but can hit very, very hard as we move later on. Regardless, not going to be the case this time around, as we'll get to see whether or not this tier and, you know, the Trinity Force that's likely going to come with it comes as a product of either the turret, the platings, or some as so far for old largely even. Only real difference jungle duo where Aki Doinb only able to take down Care, but also farming up quite well also. Sejuani spending a significant amount of time just making sure that there is pressure down on the bot side, and that this turret is...
You know, it's not Sorrow playing through the bottom side of the map for FPX, but this was the game plan that got a lot of FPX's early gold leads in their series against RNG when it was Sorrow playing in jungle. So I think, you know, just learning from the games and experiences that they had, Shadow is now implementing that straight away in this first game, trying to enable Jue and get him off the map so that he can start making plays, which is one of the big things that had FPX really given a lot of momentum in netting their first win of that series against RNG. So now, first brick going over to them, Jue on this Rel. I'm expecting to see this guy make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, level 6 as well, not too far in the distant future, about halfway through level 5 to do that. Jue, obviously a little of pressure on him so far this game, or as we move into the later portions of this game, because he is going to be that leading team fighting the Sejuani can start target. But if you're looking for men be engaged upon, Jue is the person. Look at how these team comps are going to look to play out as we get later on into the game. I do quite like what FPX have for themselves, where they can just use the Rel to combo to do great work.
as you pointed out, he's not level 6 yet. So the Magna Storm would be really nice to have before he starts really forcing the hand of NiP. Now, I am curious what the objective setup is going to be next, though, for both of these teams. Grubs spawning in 1.5 minutes. Dragon, 2.5 minutes. So there's still definitely some time to set up vision on the top side of the map. The fact of the matter is, though, that FPX, not necessarily super far ahead of the curve, but they're not necessarily that far behind. Everyone on NiP, save for top lane, is just a few hundred gold shy or ahead in terms of an advantage. And just to update everyone at home, I think we're gonna... How's the internet, Rude? I'm not gonna lie.
It's shaky, buddy.
It's still a little shaky.
It's shaky. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me know. I am okay holding it down on the 4 for a little bit if you need a chance to reset or something. Because I want to be able to hear your voice. Oh, baby, we got to fight. And Shadow's gone. The bullet time just ripped that piggy to shreds. And that's going to open up the window to at least get this vision control down for Grubs. Shadow will spawn in the next 10 seconds, but it might not be enough time to be able to advance and contest for the second rotation of Grubs.
Oh, no, still not.
Darn. All right. We're going to figure out how we're going to get Rude back in 100% pristine condition. Until then, I think it's going to be a solo cast until then. As Aki's now starting up the second rotation of Grubs. 4 have already been secure for himself. Shadow trying to lead the charge here. Leave might be the target. He's got a flash and a cleanse. Already using the cleanse on one of them, but that means that he cannot escape until he barely flashes after escaping the Sejuani ultimate. Got another all-in from Shanji trying to lay down the pain on Sheer, but it just gets the flash out. And the rest of FPX, somehow, just the pressure of forcing Leave out of the pit means that they can at least deny 6 Grubs away from NiP. So no doomsday scenario where NiP have 2 able split pushers inflicting 2 Void Mites worth of damage to the structures. And we got 30 seconds before the next dragon spawns. We'll get a quick replay and see how all this came about. And unfortunately, even though Leave has both summoner spells available, it's just not possible for him to actually enter this choke point without getting the rest of NiP to help him. So FPX immediately turn on to him. They don't get the kill, but now this is a misfortune with no summoner spells available. So the next time that FPX want to set up for this objective, which should be the dragon, if Leave is ever caught walking in a place where he shouldn't be in no man's land, I mean, this misfortune should just be dead on my screen. Sejuani ultimate doesn't look like it's going to be available in time for that unless they stall and do a good job of kind of jockeying around, waiting for this minion wave to be pushed in. Oh, Bot just sends it on to Leave. He knows he's got no summons, but he's got a solo mission. The rest of NiP collapsed before the rest of FPX could really assist. And that is not the ideal way of really punishing a summonerless misfortune there. I can respect the vision, but gotta be a little more patient on how you're finding those plays. Because now FPX, that window where this misfortune should have been dead meat on their screen, is completely forfeited. And now it's the second dragon of the game going over to NiP. Just checking. Doesn't look like Rude is back yet. We're just getting a status check on when he'll be able to join us. I really want Rude to come back because this is the first time we've got a chance to cast together, and the internet gods are not being kind to us at the moment, but, you know, I just want some RNG praise in the chat, or praises in the chat. Hopefully we can get Rudu back. Because we're now a minute away from turret plates falling off. Karen Jue maybe thinking about a collapse here on the Doinb. Shadow also making the roam down towards the bottom side of the map. Aki at least is going to screen this Sejuani, and Doinb wants to turn it on. He recognizes that Care is a little too low on HP, and that burst damage from the Viego and the Aurora is just something you cannot disrespect. Jue is in trouble next as Aki just sends the Reset City all the way through the FPX Express. Bullet time is enough to take out Sejuani once again, and I fear NiP are just running away with this game.
Okay, maybe my internet works, maybe it doesn't, but
Let's
NiP
go!
are dominating in this game, Mark. It is 6-0, 5-1 on Grubs. The Drakes are even, but that's all that FPX have so far.
My goodness. Rude, is it chalked? Is it
Maybe.
just game over? It might be chalked.
It's a 5k gold lead very early on into this game, and this is an FPX initiation as well. This was their attempt at trying to get something back, and it just fell so flat on its face. Shadow, trying to buy the time for his team to get involved, but Care, yes, he's trying to walk safely. Never mind, they're fighting again.
Well, Shanji's sending it to Care, but he's got reinforcements he's got to deal with. Shadow forcing the flash out of this Cassante. But NiP, I mean, they're totally fine if Shanji is doing the same thing as he was doing in the IG series and is just being a complete distraction and saying, sure, guys, you can focus all your attention on me while the rest of NiP is getting stuff done on the map.
I mean, and just to add some context to how just absurd Cassante still is, by the way, Riot. It was 2 levels down on the Victor there, was not even with a full item, was still probably going to win that 1 versus 1. So we'll just remember that when we're looking at how Shanji is able to have withstood so much early pressure, so much early, engagement from FPX, where he doesn't get experience for the first 4 minutes of the game, and then still goes out 1v1's enemy mid laner, 15 minutes into the game.
Rude, I think there's a lot of friends in our friend group that can stand to learn an example from Shanji. That
Yeah,
if you get if you get completely denied so much CS and so much experience in the first few levels and you're level 1 for like 3-4 minutes, you might be wanting to scream FF and just get me out. But look at Shanji, man. He put up with it. He got through it.
Now what I'm gonna say here, Arthur, is that there's a possibility. Hold on, I'll hold that thought. PP God.
No, he's on a ward. The CC chain. Shadow had no idea that he was in full vision, and this guy
Red
is
buff.
almost dead. Bullet
Oh,
time on
leave.
wall once again. That's the 3rd time, Rude.
Solo El Pilco, man. Just the tip of the MF ulti. Got to find the Sejuani to take him down. PP God. With another good engage, yes, on a ward, but absolutely more than able to find the kill onto the Sejuani. And there was a little statistic that was flown there. I do apologise that I don't quite know what it was, but PP God certainly making some tracks in the early stages of this matchup.
It's just giving flashbacks to the IG and IP series that we saw, where we didn't know what we were going to expect out of the Leaf PP God duo. Especially against, players like Gala and Mako, who have, such high accomplishments both domestically and internationally. And yet they made them look like clowns. They dunked on them multiple times, especially in game 1. And this time around, it wasn't really a chance for a 2v2 isolated kill situation, but between Leaf barely escaping by the skin of his teeth against FPX, and then PP God finding massive engages, and oh no, Care.
Oh no, Care. Oh, he's fine. Well, he's half HP, but he didn't get ulted, so, that's fine in my book.
I don't know. I don't feel fine that I just got dunked by 30% of my HP by 1 combo from Aurora, but unfortunately, that's just the state of the game right now.
Herald does take down that mid-tier 1 turret, and so far for NiP, their destruction of the map has been relatively meticulous. They took the 2 outer turrets in the side lanes, they moved their way into the mid lane, had the Herald ready, so they're going to use the Rift Herald to finish off that. They've now completed the outer turret sweep with Dragon spawning just in time as well. Their progression through the game is going quite well. They've got all the timers looking to be on sync, right? We've got the Drake that will spawn now, then they'll move up, start focusing their attention towards the Atacon, which is also down on the bot side, and maybe that'll lead into some tier 2 action as well. But for the most part, so far, NiP just controlling how this game gets played out, and at a certain stage as well, they're going to start to try and invade, start taking camps. It may even have already happened, looking at the disparity that's beginning to open up between Arky and Shadow. So once they can just control the bot side jungle, make sure that the Dragon, the Atacon, is going to be theirs. Again, just meticulous gameplay, slowly but surely making their way through this game, and not really giving FPX a way back in.
Yeah, pretty textbook stuff from NiP, and although I will say that FPX, in a few of the opening moves, kind of gift wrapped the lead for them, it is still, you know, credit to NiP for making the best out of the situation that has been gifted to them. And because the game does look pretty... what's the polite way of saying this, Rude?
Jover?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You know, it looks pretty signal for how things should play out. As FPX are trying to contest for this blue buff, and it might be ill-advised as there's the Aurora ult, there's the bullet time, and FPX suddenly realize, oh yeah, that's right. This jungle quadrant does not belong to us anymore, and that comes at the cost of Jue's life.
Who actually value, honestly, just keeping your flash at of back B through 5 1 in 100 again, isn't it?
The internet gods have come to smite you, Rude, I fear. We're gonna see.
Yeah. It'll happen, I'm afraid. It's
maybe.
Yeah.
Take me through the replay, one step at a time.
I will try, and we can see the blue buff, first of all, stolen away. But then, Victor is CC'd. Significantly so that he can't actually find an ulti. No chance to get his fighting tools down. And unfortunately, Jue does get sacrificed. Like I say, saving the flash, which I think is valuable. Finding that 1 in 100 fight is going to be their best chance. And I think that that is only possible when Jue has flash. Getting PP God and Doinb locked down and finding Care, Sheer, a chance on them. Oh dear.
Oh man, I mean, they're just gonna jump on Shadow, taking advantage of the fact that he is one of the few people that can safely face check these bushes, but that's a flash gone from the Sejuani, and it's gonna make his job even harder to try and get into this river and contest for the Otacon, because if this goes over to NiP, I'm just at a loss for words of any reason that FPX can come back in this game.
It's really tricky, right? And Otacon just snowballs so much more. Well, there's just so few opportunities to enter through bot, but they've lost ball.
They're going to look for the engage. PP God is the first one in. The bullet time looks so beautiful as the rest of FPX are forced to scatter, but wait a minute. They get the first reset for Aki, and now things are really going to be closed down for shop. FPX just got no fuel left in the tank. It looked bright for 1 second when they got the first kill on the PP God, but the rest of the dominoes fell, and NiP sweep all 5.
And you'll be happy to sacrifice your Leona if you're going to get 5 kills and an Atacon as well. You know the game state's bad when Leave is ulting you in the opposite direction to his base, and it's just going from bad to worse here for FPX. Constantly accelerating and making sure that just there's no way back into this, and they zone out the Corki. They recognize, okay, this guy's split, uses Valkyrie early, and as much as the cleanse and the flash buys a little bit of space, it's nowhere near enough. Bullet time is gorgeous as well, and again, Jue does a great job at distracting, but there's just no follow.
There's only so much that you can do when the rest of your damage dealers are under so much pressure. You have no reliable way of disrupting every single threat that NiP has assembled, because when you think about it, you have to deal with the Misfortune bullet time, you have to deal with the Aurora, you have to deal with the Viego on top of it all, and then if the Cassante is thrown into the mix, yeah, he's a tank, but he's got such high base damage and they're so far ahead that you have to treat him as just like a normal carry as well. So like, how do you deal with all of these threats trying to just slam their fist down all of FPX's throats?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is that they don't deal with it, and the current process of this game is that they are just getting walked on. And you know, the gold lead is continuing to increase, the objectives are just being taken single-handedly almost. NiP aren't really having to flinch all that much to make it happen. And when you're moving into this mid to late game now, 23 minutes in, Baron's going to be spawning in a couple of minutes, there's a Drake spawning in 15 seconds. NiP, I haven't really given this next Drake much thought, but they'll be able to get soul point here, they'll be able to continuously apply that pressure, put that timer on FPX as well, and make sure that really there is no way back in.
Yeah, it is so tough. And NiP are just doing their due diligence and knocking out structures one by one. Doinb's gonna send it. Bullet time rips through the front line once again.
Yeah.
Good night, Sheer. And maybe they get one on a PP God as he tanks up a lot of turret damage. It's just not enough to get a kill back over to FPX for Mercy. This inhibitor will fall. And it looks like a teleport is coming in. As no, oh nope, that's the Otacon GAs. You know what?
The good news is that they're throwing right now just to get withdrawn because it will still be faster. However, somebody didn't quite get the memo, and Shadow did end up having to lose his life for it. So in a change up from what we saw in the 1v1 earlier on, Shanji did lose the 1v1 initially to Care, so he did get withdrawn. However, he has teleport. So when Care had to go back to base and defend the Nexus turrets, Shanji just TP'd back down.
Uh-oh. Well, now he might have to leave. Care is going to lock him down with the W in the gravity zone, but PP God has arrived back to the field alongside the rest of NiP. And with the cavalry here, they escort Shanji back to safety. And he's just going to take a quick base while the rest of his team cleans up this dragon. And because we're both in alignment that this game is pretty much Jover, 10,000 gold advantage for NiP, I think it's a good time to just remind our lovely audience at home, you know, what is the significance of, you know, some of these players and their the intertwinement of their relationships. You know, we talked about a little bit before during the pre-show that Doinb did start with FPX, and one of the most significant
things made his name on this org.
Yeah, made his name on this org, and not only made his name on this org, but helped make a name for the org itself alongside the members of LWX, Crisp, Tien, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the top laner.
Hey man, that was so many years ago at this point. I'm not surprised. I don't know. My arms don't go that far either. This is the 1v1 down on that bot side that Shanji did lose finally. It was Gimgoon.
Gimgoon was the top laner. So all 5 of those individuals not only were able to net their own first LPL title, but it was also FPX's first LPL title in the summer 2019, going to Worlds, first appearance for all 5 plus the org, then winning the World Championship. That is a feat that only SKT 2013 SKT has accomplished, where in their first Worlds appearance they win a World Championship. Like that is so remarkable, and a lot of the highs that FPX did achieve was when Doinb was on this roster.
It's an elite club, a prestigious club to be a part of, and you know, one that FPX can hold, and the one that Doinb will do for them as another fight on this top side, looking to put the final nail in the coffin.
PP God leading the charge. Here comes the teleport. Doinb casting down between worlds on his former organization as the rest of NiP just stormed the base. Nothing can save FPX when NiP are at an all-time high. And Shadow, forced to flash, will escape certain death, but can't say the same about the impending Nexus that is now completely exposed to NiP. And this series is going off to a great start for all the NiP fans at home. GG, well played. They lead the series 1-0.
8 on 27. So that's pretty rare.
I'm going to absolutely, I don't want to mess with the internet gods, but you know, I'm going to say bad words about them off camera, off screen, because they're disrespecting my boy Rude and not letting him live up to his full peak potential. But there are moments that we got, you know, fully crystal clear, which I was a little happy about, at least. But we're gonna just throw it to break, y'all. When we come back, we'll be getting ready for game 2 between NiP and FPX. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your patience. Before we get ready for draft 2 of game 2, bada bing, draft game 2, bam. I just want to let everyone know that we're extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on air talent and content creators. So subscribe to our Coffee, linked in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability. Problems can just outdo the best of us, but thankfully we got a quick switcheroo. Alk stepping into the casting booth. I like the fit, bro. Where are you shopping from?
Please, man, it's Uniqlo.
Listen, I'm not. I got 100 Thieves merch on.
You looked super comfy, so I was like, I might as well do something that's sort of akin to that. It's getting cold now. We actually have a bunch of ice here in Vancouver, so.
You got like, oh, is it snowing over there too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Now we over in Utah it was snowing for a bit, but it's starting to let up now. So I don't know if that's climate change, global warming. I don't know. We maybe not a topic we dive into on in a esports broadcast. But Alk, I know you were watching some of the game 1. What were some of your takeaways from NiP's first performance?
When we looked at this team, first of all, with NiP, we were saying, okay, before Doinb's entrance, how was this team going to be ranking up? Probably not going to be making it out of the group. But now with Doinb's addition, I'm kind of liking the, I guess, super aggressive nature we're getting from NiP, even though Doinb is kind of messing around in the mid lane. I feel like this really opens up a player like Aki, who has in the past faced a lot of criticism for his individual play. I feel like this all-in kind of plays into that kind of tendency.
Yeah, and Doinb is someone just over the course of their last series against IG and even this first game, including the 1v1 he had against Sheer. This is someone that just plays with no fear and absolutely no regard of whether he's going to get out alive or not in some of these situations. And I think that just kind of puts a next level of fear into his opponents, because Doinb, no matter what is going on, it seems like he's just having an absolute ball of a time. And if my opponent is just like laughing hysterically in every single thing, I'm getting more nervous. I'm like, bro, we can't crack this guy.
That's why I love Doinb. Also, I love when he like pops off. You can see it, but part of his stream,
sir.
But also like when you're actually there. I don't know. I love how explosive he's always been, and that was one of the things we were looking forward to coming in. I know Slayer's been talking about it every time we have on the show. He never gets to see this guy do the walkouts or have any fun from the LPL. And with Doinb kind of missing out on the last couple years of competition, we've had that kind of been usurped by Yukao, who just recently left us for DRX.
Back in the LCK, but it's okay, because Doinb now returning to the LPL, first time competing since 2022 with LNG, if I'm not mistaken. Man, well,
it's been a while. It's been a while.
The presence was missed, Doinb, and we're glad to have you back. And already off to a thundering start in such a dominant game 1 fashion. We're right into picks and bans once again for second game of the series. And remember, since it is Fearless, all the 10 champions you saw in game 1 completely gone, not available for the rest of the series. Ashe is the first priority pick picked up for FPX.
Oh, okay. And what I'm looking forward to here is, with the kind of Varus being taken away, we obviously had talked about the Ashe. The Jhin is there for the laning phase. I want to see, is FPX going to be willing to take the Orianna, especially with what we think of Kair's champion pool to be? He has definitely been more indexing towards the supportive champions, and you've got something like a Wukong. You always have to be afraid of it. Maybe this is another game for that Karma that we were talking about during the IG series.
I do like this takeaway of the Orianna denying NiP the paranoia ball delivery system with the shockwave, but it does make me question what FPX is going to be looking at for the rest of the composition. Now, Wukong, also a great ball delivery system, Cyclone, Shockwave, you know, that is something that we've seen over the course of many years of League of Legends esports, but there's still support yet to be locked in, and there's still a top laner yet to be locked in for FPX. NiP, this Maokai, we've definitely seen it before, as it's a quite a nice flex pick that can go either jungle or support or top lane. With Nocturne already locked in, I imagine that this is going to be in Shanji's hands.
Yeah, it could also be for PP God. We've seen some people still pick up this champion, although, like you're saying, still there for the flex. So, interesting to note with the Gnar ban, we're going to see what that top lane pool starts to look like, especially with Jace and Cassante gone. I wonder if Shanji or Sheer are going to be feeling that Ambessa calling to them. Sheer, especially early on, was a very big adopter of this champion.
I don't know if FPX are going to want to put Sheer into a carry position, or if they want him to be on tank duty again, especially if the Maokai is going to be the choice that Shanji ends up sticking with. One thing I do want to kind of already tee up, we were hyped about leaving PP God off of the strength of their series against IG, and, you know, Leave being able to really surpass expectations once again, surviving and defying death multiple times on the Misfortune in Game 1. Jin was the first time during that series against IG where I was really like, okay, Leave, I see you. This guy is kind of crap.
Yeah. Leave has always had some of those kind of moments, but it has been kind of marred by some of the other controversy that's been going on. So really want to see if Leaf can have a full split, a full year under his belt where we get to see multiple incredible games from him. And now paired up with PP God, this is something that's been kind of exciting. Got MVP in this last game. We were talking about it during the break. I think with this duo, we'll see what they're able to do. Jin and Rakan, so this NiP team really wants to follow in on Shanji. I think one more damage dealer coming in from the mid lane is going to definitely be necessary, as they have a great amount of engage, and being able to catch this FPX team is going to be a little bit difficult, especially if they have their flashes available, and this Renata, I think, makes it particularly difficult.
And you know the nice thing about both Rakan and Maokai, you already pointed out, they're great engage tools, but they're also great at dealing with dive. You pop the Maokai ultimate and you dissuade the rest of the FPX team being able to follow up on a Wukong Cyclone, and you can even sit on top of your AD carry and or the rest of your backline if Doinb goes for like a traditional backline mage for his R5. Quickness, great way to just charm and just buy time. Now FPX, they're going with the Udyr for their top lane matchup into this Maokai. And oh boy, Alk, we're getting Doinb rise again.
Oh my god, and on a dime, this kind of feels like this shifts what the team is going to be able to do, especially when we talk about Jin being able to grab lane priority versus this Ashe. I do expect for them to be looking to move out. On 2 and 3 items, this NiP team is going to be so dangerous, and with early drivers like how much utility a Maokai can provide, as well as someone like Nocturne, they do still have a lot of early skirmishing. This FPX team, though, so dangerous. You think about those first items for someone like an Ashe, a Wukong. I think that first fight can be massive for them, but it all takes a bunch of setup and going to be really tricky around vision, especially with a Nocturne.
Alk, I wanted to quickly look up some stats on Rise.
Give it to me.
Oh, dang.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well,
Speak to
let's
me,
see.
brother. What do we got on Rise? What are you looking for?
I was trying to see if Doinb was the only person in the major regions to have played him, because then it would have been so cool to be like, Rise has only been picked X amount of times. They've only been played by Doinb. No, there's some other people that have played.
We got Angel.
Yeah, Angel played them once. So, okay, it kind of hurts the big hype up. But I don't want it to be understated that, Doinb is one of the only players, not the only, but one of the only players that is going back to this champion that a lot of players around the world have, just kind of left forgotten.
Yeah, it feels weird too, and I think it does come down to some of how team fights tend to work, how some of the early laning phase, like you think of like an Orianna, you think of a Azir, these champions are going to naturally set up very big team fights, but Ryze is a champion that kind of thrives at being able to be in long lanes, play around the map, play really fast around the map, similar to something like a Twisted Fate, which is why we also, I think, see players like Doinb and Angel gravitate towards those, them being, I think, pocket picks for these two guys.
Yeah, and it makes sense for how NiP have played their game so far in this first split, where if NiP get a lead, then Doinb is on a side lane creating so much pressure, and he seems totally independent and completely fine to navigate sticky situations on his own. But then the power of something like a Realm Warp just gives your team so much utility, and when you're playing against opponents that are not really used to playing against Ryze after not seeing in the meta for quite some time, you forget instances where, like, let's say you're pushing up to a tier 2 turret, take that out, and then instantly, boom, Realm Warp to an objective, and suddenly the enemy team is scrambling to deal with waves that are pushed in while also trying to contest you on an objective.
This is why, for FPX, I think an early objective for them is seeing if they can contest early grubs. They have the Udyr into the Maokai matchup. We are expecting to see the Australian lane swap here of multiple different lanes going on through. As long as Sheer can hold his own, these early grubs are going to be so important for setting up those long lanes and having someone like Aki and Doinb be actually able to play the rest of the map here. And already we're getting a map split as this is just what you kind of do. You have a double range bottom lane, help your mid lane around, man.
And that is so heinous. Shanji takes the W just to make sure that they can set up an early flash burn off of Care. And now, for the next few minutes, Care cannot overextend in this lane, because then Doinb is going to flash empowered rune prison this guy, and then that sets up a kill for any other person that's in the area. So you might as well gift wrap a kill over to a Nocturne if he's, you know, hovering around.
And look at what they're able to do here. Obviously, the wave not able to crash in time. Shanji is going to arrive a little bit late. Doesn't invest the teleport, which I think is a interesting choice. Typically, we've seen the top laners just go ahead and do that, but now we're getting the swap. You see that the junglers for NiP already in the top side clearing the rest of these camps and just protecting Leaf to be able to try to proxy another wave. Very big gold influx. I'm going to be interested yet again. We're talking about those early grubs spawning in a few minutes. That's kind of going to be key for NiP if they want extended lanes, and for FPX if they can kind of play long with this Ashe ultimate when it comes up.
PP God trying to see if he can stop the bases and the recalls from Jue and bot. He successfully does so. Shanji's going to get a base off now, try to catch the wave coming into the top side, but as I say that, he cancels the base. Leaf is walking to bot lane. Do they
captive audience, maybe?
A 3v2?
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Deadly Flourish. Probably not in range yet. Immediate flash. Now he looks for it, but it's a little too late, but they've already gotten the summoner spells burned both out of Jue.
And all of this time, Sheer wasn't pushing up the wave. He didn't know if he was going to be allowed to do that, if it was going to be something that could be more of a fast push and then move into Fog of War, start hitting the turret. But now that he's invested, Shanji, without using the teleport, now can go back up towards his top lane, pick up this wave. And again, it's all about that early interaction. We're not seeing too much of it. And really, I think the flash being taken away from Care is making sure that when we get to those grubs, even the dragon that's spawning in 1 minute, that an Orianna without flash is going to be a target for them here.
Yeah. I'm curious how much of this early game was, like, distinctly planned by NiP, or how much of it was merely a reaction to what FPX were trying to set up as a flash from PP God. Forces bot's own flash.
Ooh. And I don't know. I feel like when we talk about lane swaps, typically a lot of it is about getting early vision as to where you can try to play around. I think with both teams opting into it, some of that does come with the knowledge of what you need to do in your individual lane matchups, whether you are the top lane or the bot lane pushing. So here for NiP now, I know we've been talking a lot about them, but this is going to have to be a series where we see them kind of take it handily, considering what their expectations pre-group kind of starting, and now that we're here with a win after IG and potentially ending out first here.
Yeah, considering that IG were pretty much the expected favorites of the group, them dropping a series already means that now NiP are one series victory away from clinching a spot into playoffs, and FPX, even though a loss in this series, hang on, Doinb might be in trouble here.
Let's
but
go.
Phase rush for the movement speed and able to dodge the handshake with the flash. Yeah, comes at the cost of a summoner spell, but he's out alive.
Think about what they were able to grab from that, though. Not only is NiP starting the Dragon, but while Doinb did invest his flash, he still has a lot of HP. The same can't be said here for Care, who will have that flash coming up in about a minute, but no longer has teleport. And with Ryze being able to have access to ultimate, this does mean he can cheat a little bit and take his recall or look to move his team across the map. You kind of see that they were fading towards the bottom lane here, just providing cover and providing vision for their jungler, as I think this is still really smart here for NiP and even allows them to still contest for these early grubs if they want them.
It is at least a nice move from FPX to protect Care, knowing that it was getting dangerously close to a point where Care's flash, still not available, could have been completely taken advantage of by Doinb and Aki now that he has a few more levels under his belt and more lethality and ability to actually try and lock down this Orianna and look for a first blood kill situation. Now that threat is not as potent since you don't have a flash-empowered Rune Prison to set up that kill.
Ooh, are they looking for something? Doinb is on the way. You see that he's moving. Let's see. The Hawkshot does notice this, so you're going to see a fight here.
Nice use of the ultimates, both from Shanji and Aki. Dink's level 6, so lights have been turned out. Jue just walks back into the waiting arms of NiP so that the rest of his team can walk out safely, but it is first blood for NiP.
How much damage can FPX get on the bottom side, though? You see Udyr starting to split. They're going for the dive.
Realm Warp, and Shanji takes up the turret aggro. It's actually Doinb that's taken up as the turret now ramps up, but Doinb dodges and dips out of it. Now it's on to Shanji, but he dodges it with the twisted advance. And they're going to drop the turret aggro as they cannot get enough damage onto Shadow, but NiP got more than what they bargained for.
Wow, I thought we were seeing some more Naruto here. There's that Shadow clone was doing so much work. They were all hitting it thinking it was the real deal. He's able to slink out under the turret. But a great dive there for NiP. Does get them 2 kills, closer to the feat of strength that would be allowing that for them. And seems like Udyr was able to get just a little bit of damage down onto that bot side, again, with those early grubs that FPX were able to grab. As the rest of this fight, I mean, yeah, bot still the Nature's Grass tagging onto the Renata, kind of feeling a bit bad there, but you think about what they're able to get on the backside there, I think this is more of a setup for NiP in the next few minutes.
And this is what we were really expecting to see with this Ryze pick. It just enables NiP to play so aggressive and so fast, and it just does not give FPX any breathing room. I think they definitely are grateful that Shadow doesn't fall into that dive catastrophe as well, because otherwise you would have had 3 kills for NiP, a majority of your carries and the people that you want to get accelerated now decelerated, and it just sets up NiP for a stronger map state. But at least now that Shadow survived that, he's got some contestability coming up on the next objectives.
I also like that now it allows for NiP to really direct the map where they want to. We've been talking about Aki on this Nocturne. If he's able to continue this level of aggressiveness where he's able to control parts of the map, anytime you walk up, you're not sure if there's going to be maybe 2 extra members there. Him and Doinb being able to kind of lead the map wherever they will go is, I think, a great sign for how NiP can drive games going further into the season. So we see already Shadow going for an early invade, taking a red buff, and Aki doesn't quite know it's gone. Doinb doesn't have the ultimate, but Care is also matching.
Good use of the smite. Shadow gonna use the Trickster to walk
Shanji.
Oh, but Shanji's there to block his path. That forces Shadow's flash. Nature's Grasp on the hunt here.
Oh, he gets tagged?
And he gets the twisted advance right on the back end of it, and oh no! Shadow thought that he could survive, but NiP's just got too many tools to lock him down.
Is Shanji just the Maokai, like, avatar? He keeps bending it like Beckham around these guys. First it was that top lane play around Renata, and now he's able to still clip Shadow. That just seems like a small bit of miscalculation from FPX instead of NiP really outplaying. That should have just been the both of them getting out. It turns into a kill. Now they still have access for top side. 45 seconds before those grubs, and there's going to be key ultimates missing here for both teams. Whatever we're going to see a contest for that or try to continue to get plates.
Yeah, so you can see that Shear's trying to tank up the Maokai ultimate so that he escapes.
There's one, and he doesn't get the other one.
Oh, no.
Dude! Now, as a jungler, you know what it's like for your top laner to unfortunately grief you. He didn't do it on purpose, but, you know, I've done this a couple times for you.
You could at least see the thought process was there, and he didn't intentionally let it go through. He even used the Awaken E stance so that he doesn't himself get rooted up, but at least he tanks the roots. But
Maybe he got Z-axis. That could also be because that's the ramp going up into top side. Many such cases. We're going to have a League Ops investigate that at another time as we have the setup.
Z-axis.
Yep, PP God getting chunked here, though, will mean that FPX control this side of the river. And 6 grubs, again, that was the win condition that we wanted to see from NiP if they wanted to have early dominance with the composition they have.
Big thing, though, Aki just dinged the first item power spike for himself, so he's very strong. There's no flash for Shadow, so if NiP want to send it, as long as Shadow oversteps his welcome here on these grubs, they can call for it. Teleport is already coming in for both teams. Shanji has the ultimate ready, looking for a pincer maneuver, waiting for them to overextend just enough. Lights have been turned out. Leave ready and waiting to pincer as well. Shanji's in. Aki dives onto bot, forces him to flash away and reposition. Aki might have overextended now his own welcome, and he's going to get completely zoned off by Sheer. But the rest of NiP have full control of the river. They're forcing FPX to fall one by one, as now Sheer is left to his own devices in a 1v2, trying to run away, but Shanji locks him down once again with a twisted advance, pushes him back with the brand.
What is going on, man?
Hang on, Udyr still surviving, barely surviving the last bullet. FPX grateful that the top laner being able to pull out more than what they should have gotten, but NiP still control of the river.
What is this series, man? This is just getting wacky. It's getting wild. We're seeing some, not the cleanest team fighting here. NiP and FPX are just getting down in the mud, man. They're just wanting to go for fights. As we talked about it, setting up for the early grubs, it was 4 going over to FPX and a full reset, but everyone is just completely isolated. Usually when we look at the Nocturne ultimate, it's about that disorientation from not being able to have any more vision, but you see this Renata ult doesn't really get onto many of the members of NiP. This is a really well split fight by what NiP were able to accomplish, and now with Doinb just kind of teleporting right into the back line, it's just all over the place. There's no coordination coming in from FPX.
I am just now realizing that I was so enamored with whether NiP was going to kill Sheer that Doinb had just completely obliterated the back line off of the teleport in. He's just living the best time of his life once again. I mean, this is the power of something like a Rise where, as we said before, Alk, if you don't play against this champion regularly, especially in pro play, you forget what kind of access that this champion can get.
Yeah, especially with all the new items. For a while there, Rise was kind of an untouchable state, but now with probably the addition of Fearless Draft, but also the itemization, having stuff like the Cosmic Drive that has been buffed so many times, stuff like the Rod of Ages now, and Seraph's, how popular this item is. He's definitely getting to old Rise levels. So we'll see what Doinb's able to accomplish here as... kind of looking at where this game is now, FPX were able to finish those last 3 grubs, so they were able to get all that second camp. This next dragon, or this Herald that's spawning, could be a feat of strength for them, and then you think about them being able to actually hit turrets, but NiP, again, such strong control of the map right now with how fed Aki is getting, and especially with Doinb, that ultimate is up yet again. He's going to be getting really close to level 11, and that opens such more of the map.
And I imagine that that's just going to be the game plan for NiP as they continue into this mid game. Very similar to what we saw in the early stages of the first 13 minutes, where as soon as Paranoia and Realm Warp are available and someone is slightly overextended on a side lane, instant Avengers signal. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone is just gunning them down. But for FPX, being able to still maintain a small goal deficit rather than one that it could have ballooned so large like we saw in game 1 is pretty remarkable. And I think for 6 Void Grubs being secured, not all of these champions are going to get full benefit splitting in a side lane, except for Sheer's Udyr.
And Sheer, look, Udyr is a very potent side laner, so wouldn't be surprised if we have situations where NiP are going to try to overforce onto the Udyr side, then Udyr makes it out with like 100 HP, FPX can play the other side of the map. We'll see if that's going to be the case. I think that would be a lot of fun. We'd get a lot of yakety sacks going on, especially with the Maokai in the side lane. He's not going to be the person that really is able to match all that often, so whatever vision, whatever information Sheer can grab while he is here is going to be really important. And again, we're talking about, for FPX, the way that their team wants to operate is get into an objective first, set up with the Orianna, and look to make a turn either with Jway or with this Ashe ultimate.
Yeah, because you'd rather be in the pit and fight with the rest of your team versus trying to fight through darkness.
The sneaky
big
wards!
teleport. Here comes the Avengers signals. Let's see how many join the cause here. PP God is
Beautiful
trying to
from
lead
Shadow.
the charge and at least burn some of these ultimates, but Shanji now behind them all, looking for care. The
Doinb's
Axe
caught!
Arrow tries to break open the fight, but wait a minute, Doinb just gets chain CC'd. The Rise Mage is gone. FPX, they completely deny and nullify NiP's engage.
Small disadvantage, but this entire time, Aki's been hitting the bottom, the mid-tier one. They're not able to get it in time. It's first turret going over to FPX. Aki was nowhere near that play. When we saw Shanji start to teleport, he was still in the bottom side jungle. He was taking enemy red buff. So if he was envisioned with, I mean, level 10, the ultimate range is not that long. He should have been able to be there just a little bit sooner, and maybe that turns, but now they lose out on Doinb. He still has teleport, so he will be available for this, and he's going to immediately be here. They know that they want to try to grab this early Rift Herald.
They want to try again, at least getting the prio through the top side, as you mentioned. Sheer is forced to walk away. Shadow did manage to get a base off. Will be returning.
Oh no,
from the
Jway!
Nexus. Oh, Jway might have overextended. Did flash, but now he can't walk in as safely without any summoner spells, and it should seem like that this Rift Herald will go over to NiP.
Feats of Strength as well going over to the Ninjas in Pajamas. So getting some boot upgrades, which I know we've kind of been talking about them ever since they were introduced, but super potent with what Doinb has. I mean, even if you want to get the upgraded Lucidity boots, just so many different interactions, and especially the amount of movement speed that you have access to. All these little things are going to add up as we get closer. We were talking for NiP, 2-3 items. This team really starts to come online, and we're getting closer and closer to that point. As good replay of this last fight. Again, look at where Aki is on the map right now. Nowhere near this play, and it does open up great counter from Shadow. He's able to completely negate PP God in this fight.
As we mentioned before, you know, a lot of these tools are great for disengage on the side of NiP. So is Cyclone. If you're just trying to peel and not actually be the aggressor, Cyclone just pretty much stiffs any person trying to dive into the backline, and as Doinb overextends for the play, and FPX punish accordingly.
Oh, man. So close for FPX. I know you said earlier, look, you look at the gold lead right now. We've been talking a lot about for NiP, and here for FPX, they are holding on, and with them grabbing purchase of this mid lane, or of this river, they wanted to be in position for the dragon, but I don't know if you needed to give this up. It's a herald, the turret's already going to go down. You want to be the team that NiP walks into. You don't want it to try to go into this blind. You don't even have Ashe ultimate anymore. I think you just have to push down mid or look towards the side lane at this point.
Aki is trying to position through the mid lane so that he can get a jump on with the Paranoia on the left flank and just cause disruption that way. But as you pointed out, an FPX momentarily ceded control of the river, but it wasn't enough for NiP to take full control, as now I think the play for NiP is just try and play for mid wave, take down the turret, the Paranoia, hang on, does Aki now join the fight, curtain call, but look where Doinb has arrived to the realm war, but Shadow is now just trying to completely annihilate Leave. He does so beautifully, flashes over the wall, completely separates himself from Doinb as he now chases for another, and Shanji, because he's got no damage dealers, he is now just going to get burned down by the backline. FPX completely putting NiP in disarray, and the rest of NiP, I think they just got their pants pulled down. FPX just handled every single threat one by one.
What is going on in this game? We had some worries about what this Udyr was going to do, but NiP just completely biffed the entire team fight there. I mean, Leave, the target acquisition was just not on point for this Jhin. Doinb nowhere near the start of this fight. I thought they were going to continue with the side lane play of giving up this dragon and taking the mid-tier one as well as the bottom tier one, but they don't even get either turret, and then they fail the team fight. They're giving FPX a way back into this game.
This is so huge for FPX, because when we look at the series against RNG, you saw moments of brilliance before, unfortunately it being thrown away, but when we look at this replay and just how well FPX were able to navigate this fight, they knew that off of the arrow engage, Leave has no cleanse in this fight, and Shadow says, good luck bot lane, I'm going to take out Leave.
Great job from Shadow. Honestly, this game, we had some question marks of what Shadow was going to be able to do in a series where he's finally joined this team over Sorrow. And so far, I think he's been delivering on some of the champions that we do know him for famously. So good to see. We'll see how that develops as the series goes on. But this could be the start of FPX being able to take a game off of NiP. And let's just talk about this Group D while we have a moment here. This bit has been one of the wackiest groups, obviously starting off with the NiP upset over IG, and then even the IG RNG series. RNG's performance in general versus FPX, I think there's so much that could potentially go on if we get a much spicier expectation than what we were thinking of coming into the series.
And if FPX are able to carry this momentum forward and really just punish a lot of NiP's, I don't know how to describe it, Alk, but when we saw it in the IG series, there's just maybe a lack of respect on how to properly contest objectives in some certain scenarios. I didn't think FPX was going to be a team that would be able to punish, but maybe with Shadow in the lineup, it's giving them enough creativity and just the experience that Shadow does have from playing on teams like Mad Lions in the past. He's recognizing, hey, you know what? If the team is split up like this, I'm just going to go for one of the threats that is completely isolated.
He's always been a player that I think has really thrived when you have those engage metas. I always think of his Viego, some of his Lee Sin games especially, just that want to go forward and find the enemy backline. His ability to kind of pierce through that has always been really good. So a champion like Wukong, definitely disruptive, and with the champions that are there, while Ryze is not necessarily what we're looking for, this is a lethality Jhin especially. So he does have a lot of damage, but he is incredibly kind of paper light versus you. So you have the Ashe. Oh, we're doing an immediately turn. What?
Paranoia
Nice.
right onto the target of FPX, and good night care. Just a little too isolated, but here comes the rest of the cavalry of FPX. Maybe they can
wait
turn
a
it
minute!
around.
No!
Beautiful hostile take. The Realm Warp from Doinb says nope. They get out of the engage, and now they can re-engage on their own terms when they've got a sniper in the crow's nest on the far right side of the Baron Pit, raining hell down on the FPX. Fly, Phoenix, fly back into the ground as the ashes scatter the river.
It's a voracious Otacon that's already half-baked for them. NiP, with what was looking like a slightly botched fight from them, are able to turn it on a dime from their star mid laners' key ultimate. Right at the very last moment where it's possible for the Renata ult to hit, NiP are able to escape. What?
That was crazy, man. I'm not gonna say anything.
Like, I get
just
it,
wanna
right?
Watch what happened.
Yeah, so they obviously know, okay, there's only these two with the Nocturne ultimate as well, makes it difficult to turn. They didn't think that Sheer and Jue would be here, and I want to see this timing. The Realm Warp change, the ultimate here, while Jue flashes. They literally get out at the very last moment, no taunt, and then the TP from behind with Shanji here to be able to set up. Bots in the worst position possible for where this fight goes out. I feel bad for him. This looks, that's got to be like a backbreaker, just mentally. You're like, oh, this is such a good fight for us.
Literally one frame before the hostile takeover projectile reaches Doinb and would have canceled the Realm Warp. Could have been a completely different story, but we're not living in that universe, Alk. We're living in the timeline where NiP just pulled off probably the most BS thing I've ever seen in a hot minute. But man, oh man, that is the Doinb Rise experience for you.
This was kind of the mid matchup that we wanted to see. How much impact were they going to have in a series? Care traditionally has been someone who's kind of shied away from some of that spotlight, especially when we're talking about last year's FPX iteration. And Doinb always feels like a large voice, especially with how boisterous he is. We're getting an actual fight here as Ryze comes on through with the teleport.
Doinb returns, Shockwave does paperweight damage, and he's going to Realm Warp to try and see if he can cut off Shadow as well, but Shadow does manage to clear enough distance, will escape the grasp of NiP.
Puts them at soul point, and this feels like it is the game turning here. Aki goes forward. That's just the AD carry experience, man. You stepped up to farm Raptors, wrong side of the jungle, man.
And that statement you made, Alk, that Realm Warp, dodging the hostile takeover, just breaking the momentum of FPX is starting to ring even more true, as some of these plays are just starting to seem a little careless, and it does tend to happen when the morale is starting to dwindle on the side of FPX, as they manage to at least hold the tier 2 turret in the mid lane, but it just seems like NiP, another punch, and just completely wearing down FPX.
These items are starting to get completed, and we didn't talk about too much about the feat of strengths, but now that these boots have gone, kind of started to get picked up, already we're seeing some defensive items. So Sheer, Care, they're going to be doing a lot less damage when you look at this extra shield that Doinb and Shanji are going to have. So they're getting that much more tanky. You're already lacking the damage, I think, in a lot of instances, so it's not going to get any easier here for FPX. They need to be able to find Enchanted Crystal Arrows onto good targets. We haven't seen that kind of synchronization between the damage dealers and the crowd control units here for FPX. So maybe if that's able to kind of get in line, they can start to claw back into this game, because they only have a few minutes before it gets really out of hand.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to how well they can contest NiP at that soul point. Thankfully for them, they don't have to worry about that for at least another 3 minutes, but it just gives NiP more time to slowly push up this vision line further and further into the encroaches of their bottom side jungle. And NiP, if they want to, they have a decent enough gold lead where they can just completely darken the top side of the map. Just pull Baron and just see what happens with FPX. And if they overstep too far forward, I mean, you have so many engage tools on the side of NiP to just run it down at FPX.
Mark, I'm scared. Oh, they're using the ultimate. They want to try to make a play. Oh, Aki, you're too far up.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, that's a flash, and Shadow's going to follow on through. Shanji trying to body block as much as
Doinb's
he can.
here.
And Aki does escape the hostile takeover, and Shanji, thankfully, he is a big tree, so he doesn't care about any of the damage that FPX threw his way. Curtain call kind of tickles the FPX, not going to lie, but they did their job in just making sure that Aki got out alive.
Missing some summoner spells, but ultimates are not going to be here, and Aki's flash, so if they're able to catch this Nocturne, maybe it opens them up for a play. Baron is on the table. You do have the Dragon that's spawning in too. Maybe FPX are feeling themselves. A single ward there in the pip replay shows how this fight started. Gotta be so careful. I think with the Baron, though, you have 6 scrubs. I think you need to be able to pull them now that you no longer have the Rise ultimate. No longer Shanji having this. I think you have to pull something as FPX. Otherwise, the game is going to continue to snowball out of control.
Yeah, this is one window where there's no global tools from the side of NiP to really punish and try and collapse on you fast enough, right? So I'm in the same boat with you, but it's so hard, especially when one of your main damage dealers is now down without a flash. He's got to be careful about how he's stepping far up and how he is positioning himself. And it just doesn't seem like FPX are going to have enough time to really set that up from happening. We're only a minute and a half away from Soul Point spawning.
I feel like that story beat of FPX not really quite ready yet, especially with how young some of these teams have been, or these players have been. I mean, talking about Sheer, a really exciting rookie coming in from last year on JDG, Bot getting the move up. Exciting stuff, but this definitely feels like a team that is looking for a split 2. And to be fair, we kind of said like we didn't know who was going to have the second seed coming into this. Now with NiP and IG rocking, we'll see how that looks. For FPX, even if they're not able to win this game, there's still some exciting stuff that we got from earlier series and even Demacia Cup. So I want to see what more and more games with this team looks like as we go further in the season.
Yeah, sometimes the best way to learn is just be thrown into the fire as FPX. And
it's the format, man.
Yeah, it's a very unforgiving format. You literally have 2 series to really make a difference, to have a huge impact in the group. If you don't win any of those 2 series, it is damn near impossible to still escape the group.
Unless you have a freak group. There has to be like a really freak group accident that goes on, but yeah, it's two losses is basically you're done. 1 loss is already pretty tough, and you play 3 best of 5s. That's it for the first part of the season. You're back in March, which is great and all, but still a pretty big time. As you see NiP taking control of the bottom side, they know 10 seconds before this Dragon. If anything, they can look for a pick in mid, try to move on over. Doinb's already preemptively teleporting for this. They can go to any side lane they want now. Remember, level 17 on this Rise. Realm Warp has a huge amount of distance it can cross.
And they're already just burning the Dragon as fast as possible. Shadow is trying to walk through the fog of wars to see if he can maybe get into the pit, but PP God denies him by knocking him up right before he got to the wall. The arrow stops the curtain call in its tracks, but I don't think any NiP was getting any more off of that engage. The soul point secured. That's all they wanted.
NiP cannot allow them, or sorry, FPX cannot allow NiP to cross this side of the river. If they do, they're going to have to use the Rise ultimate for it. They need control of this top side of the river. If they give over the Baron with the Infernal Soul, I think it's already been lights out. FPX have to pull something. They have to look for a fight now that this Nocturne ultimate is no longer available.
And there's no Maokai ultimate either, so in terms of engage tools, it's really just on PP God and Realm Warp from Doinb to find an angle here. But the Baron is not burning out fast enough. Aki
Here we
can
go.
get over
No
the
one's
wall,
there.
and they're looking for the pincer. Shanji leads the charge. Sheer trying to dissuade them from walking any further.
Shadow!
Aki, oh, wait a minute. Shadow sends it with the sideboard,
Baron!
trying to see if he can break the line, but Shadow falls. And if the Monkey King is gone, I don't think there's any hope for the remaining Phoenix members. FPX starting to fall one by one as Sheer is isolated by NiP once again. Paranoia is accessible once again for Aki as he takes off the lights from every single member left on the Rift. FPX completely aced, and NiP, this game is theirs.
That's a soul. It's going to be Baron. Some of the early game was looking kind of wary there for NiP, but they get it done in a team fight. The Rise ultimate being such a large bait for this team, being a distraction there, just sets up the rest of the team. I will say, as much as we've been talking about this mid-jungle duo, PP God has had a pretty good series so far with some minor corrections needed. He has been so great here, and as we get into this fight, I mean, there's no Ashe ultimate available anymore. Shadow, this engage is great, but look at the rest of your team as Ashe is not being able to deal any damage here. You get the flash from Sheer, but PP God is just rooting everybody. I thought this Baron was going to take out Leave.
That is so crazy that Leave survived. He was literally on double-digit HP, and somehow just a little bit of the healing. I don't even know what the healing was from, but he just managed to survive it all. And everyone had committed so hard into that engage. It's hard to escape.
Ooh, and he has the upgraded swiftness boost, so getting so much movement speed. This is the fast Jhin build here coming on through. I mean, you've got Baron. They can play on side. You already see that Aki and Leave are sitting in the shadows. They're starting to clear vision. Anyone that steps up even close to this turret, you can have a Nocturne and a Jhin ult that you can't even see coming. So lots of damage on a side lane now. They can play on 2 waves. Such big map control, kind of playing the big picture here from NiP as FPX are going to have to watch as the rest of this game crumbles around them.
Yep, they're going to open up the siege by using the curtain call. Decent chunk on the Jway. Kair is also losing a lot of HP, down below 50%. Shanji just opening up even further with the Maokai ultimate. This just gives freedom for NiP to walk in through the bot side of the map. Inhibitor turret, gone. Inhibitors both in mid lane and bot lane, gone.
Ooh, hey, can we get it? Hey,
There it
we got
is.
another inhibitor. Okay. Yeah, let's just see what the victory lap here for NiP is. I want to see how they're able to close this out. Kind of similar to last game, and I know we've been getting some slower ends, but with such an explosive fight, you still have Baron for another minute. We have the Elder that's spawning in 2.5. I think in between that time, there should be a big enough fight here for NiP. And again, you have the Rise ultimate. You can just drop an entire minion wave into their base for all you care.
Dude, that would be pretty funny. I'm not gonna
Baron
lie.
up minion wave as well if they're able to take control through mid. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he can accelerate the siege process of this top wave, but he's got to wait for the rest of NiP to get in position first before he just fully sends it. But then again, this is Doinb we're talking about. We've seen stranger events occur when he
has 1 million items, man. Look at how much HP he has. This guy is not dying ever, and he does 1 million damage. Like, you're never actually going to be able to take down this Rise from this position. They're using even Shanji's ult, like we were saying earlier, just to make sure they can grab this. Full court press here. Another minion wave arriving in mid. You've got 8 seconds, so no more Baron.
Arrow goes wide. Wait a minute. Leave stepped a little too far forward. He's taken out of the picture here. Maybe
there's
NiP.
Aki.
This is a fight that has gone a little too sour. Shadow finds PP God, and suddenly, even though Aki trades on the bat, Kair and Shadow are still trying to fight their way through this fight. Sheer doing the damnedest he can on the Udyr.
Sheer?
Maybe he'll get one back onto Doinb, but can he deal with the rest of NiP? That is going to be the question. Aki cannot step up forward, and FPX's solo laners might have just bought them enough time to live to see another day, but they cannot protect the inhibitor, and these Nexus towers are under fire. Shanji
does no damage!
Dude, Sheer and Kair can't actually take out this Maokai, man. He's just healing and sustaining through it all. They protect the Nexus towers for now, but now you've got double super minions pouring through every single lane.
This feels like you got the big mech pilots, right? Like, you have this huge Udyr who's going to be a drain tank sitting in the back line, but once you get to the insides, there's just no way that the rest of the team can operate. You see, with this ultimate from Aki, the backline is completely threatened. Ash gets blown up into this fight alongside someone like Doinb being able to hold on the front line. It's great to see that FPX are able to fight back, but think about how much it costs them. Their base is in tatters.
It is pretty much one fight away from closing out on the side of NiP. And now with the Elder Dragon spawn, FPX are forced to
Shadow
leave the
dead?
base. They have to
Oh, no!
contest it. No, this is not where Shadow wants to be. Care gets a decent shockwave to follow up, but no one falls from the side of NiP. No jungler, no AD carry, just down to your solo laners and your support, and that's not a recipe for success at all. It's FPX. Good night to both Jue and Cares. They get sniped off, and now it's just the last dude here on the side, but he's not going to do anything. At least not enough to stop NiP from pouring into this base, and it's all open season for NiP. Oh, GG, well played once again. Another dominant victory where it looked closer for FPX, but somehow, someway, NiP arrives all the same. 2-0, they lead the series.
They play around the map consistently. I love how they're also able to kind of do what they want with their jungler. Aki feeling like still the same player, but with pieces around him that will definitely opt for the same kind of plays that he is going for. And the champions that they have that open them up to that possibility. Really good stuff from NiP. This is exactly the kind of domination that we need to see if we're going to be feeling confident about them being first seed here in Group D.
And they're making a pretty damn good argument for that case. I will say, you know, there was some moments of hope for FPX being able to capitalize on, you know, something that me and Rude were kind of alluding to in game one, that when it comes to some of these objective setups, NiP sometimes feels a little disrespectful to their opponents on how they're, you know, really setting and positioning around their threats. And, you know, FPX were able to punish a couple of those moments. And it really just did feel like the one freak accident where the Realm War barely escapes the hostile takeover that put NiP back in control.
Mark, I'm just gonna say it. NiP has a Tian jungle. Just saying. He's gonna go in. He's gonna lead the game from the front, and sometimes he's gonna say, "Guys, I have an angle," and just go for it. And the rest of the team has to kind of opt in. We've seen that from Weibo. Now we're seeing it here with NiP. I think similar kind of archetypes there. Look, Aki in the middle of that game. You saw some of those Nocturne ultimates. He's like, I can kill Orianna, and then suddenly there's the rest of the enemy team there with FPX. That will sometimes bite NiP, but that's, I think, the fun you have to buy in with a team like this. With so many personalities we're talking about with Doinb joining this team, I think you kind of have to be a part of the roller coaster to really appreciate the full spectrum.
Yeah, and, you know, on the flip side here for FPX, you know, we talked about at the top of the show that one of the big stories we were looking at is not only, you know, how Doinb returns to the LPL and what kind of form he's in for NiP, but, you know, facing off against his old org, the last remaining franchise member for FPX is the guy that stepped in to fill Doinb's shoes once Doinb left the org. Care has been here since 2022, and unfortunately, he's not getting really any time to shine in this series so far.
He's supposed to be the franchise player, right? The player that has, you were saying, taken over the mantle as the mid laner for FPX. And we said at the top of the show, the series, the kind of success that FPX has not been able to replicate since Doinb's departure has been felt. And for FPX, you're kind of looking at our mid lane matchup here. It feels weird to say, you know, you look at the kind of damage, but it doesn't feel like Care has, so far in this series, had the same level of impact. He kind of has been playing more supportive for the team.
Yeah, and, you know, we bring these up to really just illustrate how... That's a producer special right there. Something, the AD era of Fun Plus Phoenix, unfortunately, has not reached nearly the same heights as they did when Doinb was on the roster. And, you know, to Care's defense, when he came up after being promoted, he has gone through multiple roster iterations, multiple jungle pairings, and I'm just going down the list. He played with Klid, he played with Haoye, he played with Hacker, he played with Moyan, he played with Milky Way. I mean, these are multiple times that I think it's, you know, yes, Care has now had, you know, 3 years to try and level up his game and be a formidable mid laner, especially if he's going to be the franchise player. But also, you know, benefit of the doubt, there's been multiple team changes around him, and, you know, we don't know what it's like behind the scenes, having to adjust to different play styles, seemingly on a year-to-year basis.
And then we also have, you know, like the mix-up in terms of the meta, not even before Fearless, but we had those ADs, the AD mid laners with all the marksmen. That didn't really fit in with that, so alongside all the kind of different changes, we saw last year was probably the most exciting that FPX has looked in a few years, just with the addition of Milky Way and that team making a pretty big splash. Now here with some more rookies, this feels like maybe another year where, while Care is a supportive mid laner, maybe he's like sitting in a situation where him and Shadow really have to carry the team. And I want to see some aggressive picks for bot. He has been the player that I think bot lane wise, him and Jachi are incoming LDL rookies. I wanted to see more kind of aggressiveness, especially from what we got during Demacia Cup. These guys were really on fire.
And we know that based on their series against RNG, when FPX were playing through Jue and bot, they were finding a lot of success, enabling them to get accelerated on the map, especially when Jue is kind of freed up from the shackles of laning phase. He's able to find a lot of proactive picks. Unfortunately, both of these games, that has not really happened, where in the first game, there was a lot of priority from Shadow playing towards bot lane, but they didn't find a huge advantage because the game just kind of got rolled over by NiP before they got to that point.
Yeah, a lot of changes into the game just have kind of differed how you want to go for rotations. We haven't seen them set up that really strong bot dive, especially. We kind of saw some of it, but it was covered by PP God. They weren't able to get much in the early game as well. We did say that they eventually got the 6 grubs, but it did come at a cost. And FPX, I think, back to the drawing board. It just feels like someone else other than Shadow needs people to pull the trigger, and we didn't see a lot of those Ashe ultimates especially land from bots. So I want to see a little bit tighter coordination coming in from this FPX team. Again, a team that we're expecting to really kind of find their footing with more games under their belt.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat with you that someone else also needs to help Shadow with setting off engages. And, you know, I think the pick in theory for Jue, the Renata, makes sense to try and dissuade a lot of the dive that is going on. But it really seems like, just based on what we have seen from Jue in his career, that engaged champions, if he's accelerated and he's enabled, oh, he's thriving. And like my favorite game of him so far was the Nico in game 1 against RNG, you know, a couple weeks before the Lunar New Year break. The fact that he was enabled by Sorrow and then just forcing multiple picks, I mean, there's a reason why it was an MVP game performance from him.
Yeah. I want to see what the adaptation is. We've already seen, you know, we're in game 2, so going into game 3 is going to be 10 champions, 4 mid laners gone already. Maybe we can kind of start to dip into more of those fun, wacky picks, but especially with where Kalista is right now, I don't expect either of our teams to kind of give up that pairing. That has been such a popular bot lane pair, and if FPX are able to grab it, obviously they'll have side select, they'll have access to blue side. Maybe they're able to pick that up and kind of flex that around. Maybe that's an opening for FPX early on.
Maybe. It looks like the LPL broadcast is closing down on who their MVP of the game is. I mean, for me, it's kind of hard not to give it to Doinb because the Rise Realm Warp did save them and bring them back into the game. Yeah.
He had too many clutch plays. I think it's too iconic as well. And that's just going to be Doinb. I think this is just going to be the tale of this team. We're going to have some eventual, like, leave. Maybe we get some more Aki plays. With Cassante always in the meta, we're always going to maybe see Shanji and PP God there. But Doinb, I have a feeling, is going to be very, very popular for player of the game, having such high impact when we talk about any one game that he is playing.
Yeah. Well, with that, NiP, 1 game away from clinching this series. 1 game away from clinching a playoff spot from Group D. When we come back from the break, we'll be getting ready for a draft of Game 3. Welcome back, y'all. We're getting ready for Game 3, and draft will be arriving to your screen any moment, I guarantee it. But until then, I just want to recap what has happened in this series so far and talking about the narratives that we have been following from day 1 of this series. And by day 1, I mean hour 1. You know, I'm just kind of going with the time clock and just using that as the illusion. But let's go for the top here.
We're 2 hours in. We had some great lore happen here. Not only did we have FPX kind of putting some early game in, but just NiP with their team fighting has been so clutch 2 games now in a row. And we even had to, we did a hot caster swap in the middle of it. So
true.
We were I was thinking maybe we can, if we cooked up a really dark timeline, we get Kelsey to come in here and do the last game.
Oh.
And I just assume this is going to be the last game. Just to really make this night truly special and unique.
The FPX fans will send the trucks to your house, Alk.
No! The FPX fans have been really chill for the most part.
They are, I imagine, are sending their unwavering support, even though that FPX is experiencing really tough times in these past 2 games. And, you know, to their credit, you know, very similar to in their series against RNG, there's moments in this previous game where it looked like they actually had control. There was a way for them to progress forward where they were the ones in the driver's seat. And then it just fell apart. You know, I'm going to say it once again, that Realm Warp avoiding the hostile takeover, one of the craziest things I have seen this year.
That felt like plot armor, man. They could not allow it. The scriptwriters were like, no, FPX, you're flying a little too close. Let's bring you right back down. Give you a Realm Warp to really think about. Glad to see that there's still kind of smiles across the faces of FPX, and we'll see what this rest of kind of the series they're able to put up. Again, Fearless, we are here in Game 2 or in Game 3, so some more options available here, and kind of want to see what the bot lane is going to look like. That is one of the pools that gets pinched so early on here. Corki Ashe and the Misfortune gone as well. Varus getting to be, I think, going to be the first pick, or that Kalista we were talking about before the break.
Maybe. It has been consistently banned on red side this entire series alongside Skarner and Rumble. By the way, Skarner has not gotten picked a single time. It has been banned in every single game of the LPL split, and the Kalista not going to get through, but this does open up for a Varus first pick in FPX. If this goes through, I don't think they'll hesitate.
And you got to think here that while Nautilus in the engage support would be great, Braum still being up and available makes it so difficult to try to blind this champion here. For NiP, they're going to have to go for champions that are able to either deal with Varus's range or have a little bit more damage. Thinking about blinds in the jungle especially, a lot of the AD junglers are already gone. So I wonder if this is going to be one of Aki's few rare mage games. We haven't really seen Zyra pop up, but that's been getting more and more popularity as the season has gone on.
Lo and behold, you called it, Alk. The time has arrived. All the fighter junglers are gone, and it was said during the IG NiP series as well. Once the pool opens up, throw a Zyra in there, throw a Brand in there. Hell, even a Lilia would have sufficed here, but, you know, Zyra, I think, just still reigning as one of the best champions you can slot in that role, but Shadow's gonna throw down the gauntlet and says, you know what, I got a mage too, and his name is Karthus.
Low-key, I was kind of wondering if we were going to get that Evelynn. The Evelynn's kind of real for Shadow. It's a bit of a small pocket pick for him, so wouldn't have been surprised to see that. Maybe that's something we get as a treat later on into the year, but NiP now, they have a pretty strong topside bruiser now matched with a pretty good farming jungle, but we're seeing 2 AP junglers here. Frontline is going to be so important, and so on the back end of this draft, thinking of tank champions are going to still be up and available that can buy time and buy space for someone like Karthus and the Zyra.
And not only this is a nice pickup for Doinb on the Sylas, but it's a pretty decent denial from Care, as one of the games where FPX looked like they could have won was off of a tank Sylas performance from Care. Unfortunately, just not enough to get them over the finish line, but now Care's champion pool being restricted even further. I'm looking through like his career and his past, and there's honestly a variety of champions that he could pull out. I'm not going to really call out any other than the Kassadin, but I don't know if a situation has really popped up, but it was one that he had a lot of success on in prior years with FPX.
What happens here, Mark, if we get like it would be really it'd be quite cringe, but maybe we get the Lee Sin mid from Care. I feel like it would be a great gauntlet thrown. Look, you're playing into Sylas mid here. We expect that the Sylas is going to be here for Doinb. If you're trying to go for absolute mid, if you're just trying to get counter picks and you want an AD jungle or you want an AD mid to pair alongside this Karthus, things to consider here. That AD pull for Care has not been particularly kind. Maybe it's just a Tristana in the mid lane. That is definitely something that's up and available here for FPX. As what are NiP going to be going for? They just want in full empowerment for these melees. Sivir there for Leave, I think, is great when we talk about being able to build frontline with these two solo lanes.
Could also be a Lucian for Care. I know that's not necessarily a marksman that many mid laners are going to these days, but it was something that Care was still playing, I want to say, during the Demacia Cup. Obviously, he played one during the 1v1, but Alec, you're getting so damn good at these predictions. You know, if this hover goes through, bam, Tristana locked in. I mean, if you want to guarantee priority in the mid lane, especially against a melee champion like Sylas, ain't no better marksman champion than Tristana.
What top lane here is Sheer gonna go for? I love that NiP. We didn't talk about it before, but taking away the Renekton, one of the big three champions here for Sheer. Last year was the Jax, the Renekton as well, Cassante being a big one. So we'll see what else he's going to reach for. He's going to go for the full scaling. This FPX team, they want to go late. They have this Varus to apply poke in the early game, get them some action early on, but come 2-3 items, if we're able to hit that 25-30 minute mark, Karthus and Tristana are going to be such big players for this team.
What is the last pick? A Nico for PP God. Now, we know that FPX had a stellar performance with the Nico support for Jue in their series against RNG. Now PP God gets the throw down for a performance of his own. And, you know, Sivir is not necessarily thought of the typical pairing, but Sivir gives you a giant movement speed boost when she pops her ultimate. That's a nice way to accelerate your Nico into the backline and get a Pop Blossom off.
And think about the ultimates that are also going to be able to pair with Sylas taking the Nautilus ult, so they always have pick potential on the enemy team. You can have an Ornn ultimate for crying out loud, right? There's so many options here for NiP to actually turn a fight on them, and so it's going to be really interesting for me how this bot lane pair gets out of the lane, because Sivir and Nico double range bot lane into this Varus and Nautilus. You're not going to have a lot of access to wave clear. You're going to lose out on the 2v2 in terms of damage, and when we talk about dives, you have a Zyra diving you under your turret as Varus Nautilus, man. Like, it is so difficult to play. I want to see where these junglers are going to be pathing early on, and it is going to be on Shadow to make sure that he's able to at least protect his lanes and make sure that his jungle camps are not getting attacked.
But it's such a difficult task to do, because if you are asked to protect your lanes as someone like a Karthus, that's like the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. You want your lanes to be self-sufficient so that you can power farm to your heart's content, get that full clear rotation before you move out on the map. But it, you know, to be fair, it is the same name of the game for NiP. Both of these junglers are trying to achieve similar things where they're trying to prioritize their own self-resources. And I think one of the things that helps Zyra out a lot versus Karthus is just the ability to really at least lay down stronger utility with the power of that E.
Oh, they're going to go for a bit of a cheeky invade. Jue does not land the hook there. Big change if that kind of lands. Jue can find another one. It is shorter cooldown because it did hit terrain. Lands onto Shanji.
Shanji should be fine. Not enough members of FPX are in range to follow up on that dredge line, but it does force NiP members out of this jungle, and it gives FPX a moment to start littering the ground with all these wards.
Okay, splitting the map. What we wanted to see, right? We want to see where the junglers for both of these teams are going to start. And for protecting this Varus, it seems like for FPX, they're going for the on-hit Varus build. So a champion that's going to be able to at least try to match Sivir, but really needs to have time to build up in these fights. And you're going to have a Nico on top of you. You're going to have Renekton. Maybe once he's able to hit 2 or 3 items, he'll be tanky enough. Typically has something like either the Jock Show or even the early Terminus. These are all kinds of things that make Varus very difficult, and even disrupting Zyra's early clear. Damn, Mark, you're the jungler here, let it rip.
No, I mean, no, this is exactly what you want to do. When Zyra first rose to prominence, a lot of people didn't know how to really counter or deal with the Zyra because her clear speed is so obnoxiously fast, but the power lies in her being able to get all those plants spawned, and because you don't have access to W level 1, you are relying on your passive, and that's a timed ability. And the fact that they walk in, track her through the bottom side jungle, force her through the top side, and then deny the plant spawns, it means that the Karthus is going to just be a little bit faster on this first clear. But now that Aki has access to his seeds through W, it should be relatively evened up again.
Look what they've done. They've even gone for the swap. It looks like they're going to try to make this dive onto Shanji. There's no one else on the opposite side here. We're talking about Sheer helping push in this wave.
Wait,
Shadow's by himself. Wait, does he win? Oh, he got so
it
much
was
healing from the
close.
jungle camps. Ooh, they got demolished as well?
I mean, fortunately for Shadow, Shanji is only level 1, and he took Slice and Dice. Imagine if he's a level 2 Renekton. That story looks way different and a lot scarier for the Karthus. But teleport coming in, trying to catch this wave. It is Sheer, level 2 on the Ornn against 3 people. Flashes
Sheer?
the root from Nico. Nicely done. And that should be enough to dissuade this dive. They're still throwing out spells, but they're not really getting much other than just a little bit of HP bars. But Sheer is able to clear most of the minion wave. Gonna get some chip damage down onto Leave and PP got as well. This is pretty well played from the top laner of FPX.
He got the wave, but I mean, he's going to be missing out on so much of his HP. What this really means is, I think, a detriment to Aki. We wanted to see this Zyra farming, and while she's not doing any of these camps trying to protect her bottom lane, Shadow's been clearing minions this entire time. He's going through camps. He's finishing on his wolves now as well. A really good start here for FPX so far, but Sheer needs to be very careful. If he can survive this, it's huge.
He channels and buffers the E despite the root, but it's still not enough to just survive the dive, and Aki picks up first blood.
That's what I wanted to see. Shanji now does survive, so he's missing out. But still, I mean, Sheer, we were kind of praising him for that first part of the dive. All he needed to do was survive, but he lost so much HP. Now it means that, you know, Leave and them, they get 2 turret plates for themselves. The kill does go over to Zyra, so making up for some of that lost time in the jungle.
And I think it's a really creative pivot from NiP, knowing that FPX put so much time into trying to decelerate Aki, rather than recuperate the losses of what he could have done by picking up whatever main camps he got. Aki says, okay, you know what? Deny me my camp? Sure. I'm going to deny your top laner his life and his ability to farm the wave.
And he's Ornn, right? Ornn's one of those few champions. Well, obviously, every champion loves gold and experience, but especially for Ornn, he really wants to be able to get to level 14 to get those masterwork items. PP God, level 3, though, trying to sneak up on Care. Gets the buffer, so he's able to escape from that. And I wonder where the reset is going to be coming in here, because Care probably close to a really big item purchase, and we do have the grub spawning in a minute and a half, so any chip damage they're able to grab or some space here for Doinb to pick up this wave is really appreciated.
Now, we've seen top laners get the short end of the stick before. I think Shanji from the NiP IG series, where completely denied multiple times and still being able to recuperate all of his losses, should be inspiration for Sheer to still make it through a lot of the harassment he got from NiP's trio early on. But we're only still 5 minutes into the game. Grubs will be spawning in the next 50 seconds here out. I'm curious who really is going to be able to make the move first on these objectives.
Going to be a big item spike here for Shadow, who's taking his recall now. Gets boots and the Faded Ashes, so is finally able to match Aki here. But ultimates for me, I mean, I'm kind of looking at our 2 mid laners here. Doinb's got to have level 6 before Care, and I would think a stolen Nautilus ult before Jway is anywhere close to this. It's going to be a big game, kind of game decider, at least for the early parts of this.
Decent chunk from PP God, just trying to catch Jway on rotation towards the mid lane. About 10 seconds out before these grubs do spawn, as you already pointed out. Doinb just dinging level 6 now, and he's actually landing against Sheer. He's going to take Call of the Forge God. He doesn't have teleport, but if he's able to clear this wave and beeline straight towards the top side of the map, that's a powerful ultimate to have in your back pocket.
Are they timing the summoner spell? Because they should know that Sheer doesn't have teleport. They need to make this play instantly. Aki flashes out. And it's going to be not a single grub taken quite yet. Remember, big control of mid here from NiP coming out from the Sivir.
And FPX, I think they can walk in. I mean, Shadow is not showing any inclination of getting into the river. And yes, they burned flash for flash onto Aki, but he still has the rest of his teammates being able to collapse in. So grubs, first rotation secured for NiP. And there's no inclination that the rest of FPX are going to try to trade, at least for the first dragon of the game. So NiP might be able to get both objectives as they look for a pinch. PP God gets snagged up by the dredge line. Shadow deals a lot of damage with those Skittles. And Leave is going to use the pressure that he has on this Sivir to try and force him back. And like we said, no dragon immediately taken by FPX.
But they lose control of mid again. I mean, we were talking about so much fighting to try to get damage onto PP God, but bot needed to get a reset in. Jue as well had already spent a lot of his time and had to get the refresh. I don't know, I feel like you lose so much positioning here, especially for someone like the Sivir, having a natural CS advantage for themselves and buying the Cole very early on. The Sivir is going to get closer and closer to those 3 items faster than your Karthus is right now, and as soon as you lose access through the mid lane, I think this game becomes very tough for FPX. You're missing out on having access to the Raptor camp, which is so important for a lot of farm junglers, right? It's one of those camps you just need to be able to grab for.
Yeah, and it's so easy to pick up, especially if you're Karthus, but if you lose that, that is a big source of income and experience that you're just slowly bleeding out, and then you slowly get outpaced, and that's how a lot of these matchups can swing when your team is able to control the mid-wave push and just push into that side of the jungle. Now, this dragon is still up for contest. The rest of NiP still maintaining full control of the mid-wave and then just using the priority to bounce around and continue to push that vision line further and further into the jungle.
We've got 3 grubs as well. Maybe they make a play on this top side once Doinb catches this wave. If Sheer walks up a little too far, they can grab an ultimate, maybe grab the summoner spell out from Sheer. But a lot of damage going over towards this bottom side. They're going to give up mid control to try to make a play onto Shanji. Shadow's in position, and this bottom lane from FPX are en route.
Shanji does have Dominus available, so if he needs to, he can just pop the ulti and clear the next wave if they opt in for the dive. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case here as they return their bot lane to the mid lane, trying to catch the wave. And there was a trade of essentially camps, but looks like Aki got more than what Shadow was able to get. Sheer just trying to use the Call of the Forge God to clear this minion wave, and Doinb chunking him as much as he can.
There we go. Shanji's popped the ultimate, though. He's cleared the minion wave. I don't think this is going to be much of a play. Jue doesn't even have ultimate quite yet. He's nowhere near level 6, so talk about the experience differential. PP God's about to tick over, but they're going to have that Pop Blossom coming through. They're still trying to zone Sheer off of this wave, and they're the ones with the grub, so they'll deal extra damage alongside it.
And Jue and Kair are going to try again. Shaji no longer having access to Dominus. Jue has to lead the charge here. The flash, the double slice and dice, trying to avoid it all. And Jue lives with a sliver of HP.
How much damage is going on in the top side, though? Yes, it's a Tristana, and Aki walks into Shadow.
Oh, he misses the root, but it's still a lot of damage just from the power of the plants and the ultimate. Shadow forced the flash. He's going to use the Blast Cone to get himself away from Aki's hands. The rest of NiP, they're on the top side.
Look at this turret. It's just eviscerated. Maybe they grab it here. We've got grub spawning in 45 seconds. If they take this turret, they're not going to have time to really reset, get back out on the map. Although, look at where FPX are. Maybe there's a small window where you can abuse them. Looks like they're trying to clear out the rest of their bottom side of the map, pick up where Shanji is on the bottom. I mean, Kair doesn't have teleport. This might just be an angle for NiP to grab 6 grubs.
I think Doinb can really decide whether FPX will want to challenge or not. I mean, Call of the Forge God might not be, again, available based on Silas's hack cooldown, or hijack, I should say, but he can grab this Nautilus ultimate, and that's still a pretty damn good engage tool. He could also look for Chain of Corruptions. That's also a powerful pick tool. Doinb's already setting himself up his position, and there it is. Def Charge acquired.
Level 8, he's got some AP in his back pocket. It's going to be 6 grubs going over to NiP. So dangerous to play, especially once they start to kind of get in position for some of these fights. You're talking about Doinb on a side lane, this Renekton on a side lane. It's going to be very difficult to deal with, and something that if you lose a team fight, suddenly the entire map explodes. So we need to see how NiP are able to play off of objectives and draw FPX to fights, because so far it's been some skirmishes, but really a pretty calm game, all things considering.
Yeah, only 1 kill apiece, but the gold lead is slowly getting the feeling that it will start to balloon for NiP. FPX, they do have a chance to look and burn down this dragon. PP God trying to use the power of the clone to get them vision, but not enough to warrant their way in contesting this dragon. And for FPX, it's a nice consolation prize, at least being able to get the first dragon of the game.
So weird, 11 minutes first dragon. It feels so late when we talk about how many objectives just have been added to the game and how early you have to kind of play for them. Every 3 minutes it feels like there's something you got to do. There is something that we're going to be fighting over, or something we're going to be losing resources on. As engage on a Shanji.
What about fight in the bot lane? And FPX completely blow up this Crocodile before the rest of NiP can really send in the reinforcements, but they're going to look for another re-engage. There's the chains. It connects on the Shadow.
They
Aki
make it
follows up
happen.
beautifully. Doinb is going to go down for his efforts, and that gives Care another reset to jump away to safety, but taking a lot of damage as well. Oh, PP God almost biting the dust as well. Care just does not have enough damage to finish off the Nico, but it was close.
And they've got 6 grubs. They should be able to take this turret. It's been a fight over the mid lane with our 280 carries. Such a close bout here for FPX. Oh, here's Karthus. Does he get it? He has the Blackfire Torch.
Wait a minute, Deathfire Torch. The bird. Is it going to be enough?
No!
He's blinking. No, it's not enough. He got as low as 11 HP, Elk.
Oh, I saw 6. I don't know, man. He's so low. Maybe a play onto Sheer. This would just open up so much for NiP, kind of the cherry on top. It's going to be the flash coming out from the young top laner. And right now, Rafa, we kind of set up our mid lane 1v1 as the men of the hour here. And Care on this Tristana has to make miracles happen, as he is really the only person that has a lot of gold, but he has so much set up on his side, even with bot on this Varus.
Yeah, we talked about in the previous 2 games that Care has not been set up for success, whether it was the Orianna in game 2 or the Corki in game 1, or not the Corki. I'm blanking on
It's Aurora.
Yeah, the Aurora in game 1. This is the best start that Care has had. He is now 3-0. He's the only member on his team that has an objective bounty, so there's a big target painted on his head. But he has the safety of being able to bounce around with the resets that you get on this Tristana. We are looking at a game that is potentially similar to the one in game 4, where Care was in a similar position on the Corki against RNG. He had the keys to the kingdom. It was up to him to really carry it through. But can he actually lead it with this lead that he has?
He's got a lot of front line. Ornn and Nautilus, even with Jue falling behind in terms of experience, you're just going to be able to buy so much space for your team. But we're talking about those big item spikes coming through it. Big level break points, I think, specifically. We're looking at the jungles here. Aki, close to level 11. 2 points in the ultimate is going to be a big game changer when we're talking about setting up around this bear or this Rift Herald that's spawning in minute 40. The Dragon in 2. Those are going to be kind of big terrain pieces that NiP can kind of play around and build for someone like Sivir or even this Nico, who we haven't seen connect in the game all that much. I feel like bot lane has definitely taken a back seat so far in our 3rd game.
It definitely makes sense from the perspective of at least a Sivir, where early on, I think you're just on perma wave clear duty. And it always feels like when you're playing Sivir, you are just perma wave clearing until you get to maybe 6 items. Then you connect to the game, and then you're starting to do a bunch of damage with the bouncing boomerang blades.
They're trying to set up 3 mid. I mean, it's just Sivir, man. Just sit in mid, press W, get the ricochets, clear out this. We saw FPX were moving up towards top side. They didn't get too much vision, so maybe on their way of clearing. I do see that the sweeper is down for Jue, so just making sure that it is dark on that side of the map. Renekton here. I don't know how much they're going to be able to play. Maybe with Aki. They have a timer here.
They know that Sheer doesn't have flash from the play they made on the top side before, and that sets up for the easy lockdown. Good night, Sheer. 3-man dedicated to taking out the Ornn. We're going to see what FPX can at least take on the flip side of the map.
6 grubs as well, so they rushed with this Sivir ultimate. They're having Doinb hold mid by himself, and he gets out, so by so much time, they can push on this bottom wave. They're taking resets. Shanji's now teleported to catch the top side. Defending for this Rift Herald is going to be very difficult for FPX, even with the members coming back up. Sheer's going to have to kind of walk on over, and while this is all happening, there's just structure damage going down that FPX is not responding to.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't think about, I know that Sivir clears waves super fast. I didn't necessarily... Oh, whoa!
Oh!
The connects right onto Doinb!
Wait a minute, Care!
Death charge! Oh! Doinb still survives long enough that they at least trade one back. But it's the mid laner that's fell for the side of FPX, as they're able to at least get a 1-for-1. Thank you, Jue, for your sacrifice. They take out Doinb.
Wait, Care in that fight, I think, makes such a huge difference. That ultimate... I hope we get that in a replay, man. They open up for this now, and that was a great pick coming out from Jue. It opens up FPX to grab the Herald. This has been a doomed game, and I feel like every one of these games in this series has been FPX fighting tooth and nail with NiP, and now we finally got to get it where it's landing in favor of FPX. this catch on a Doinb. It's the second time in a row, and look where PP got. Tries to enter in, buster shots away this Nico. Huge game changer here, as FPX would have got engaged upon, maybe take some turret shots, and it's just a completely different story there. So we'll see what they're able to actually do with this Rift Herald, as they're still going to have to push out these waves, and it's Sivir, it's this Zyra who can eventually move on over. I think it's going to be very difficult. Maybe they just kind of cheater it and say, look, coming into that next Otacon, we're looking to really kind of play off of mid lane.
An extremely clutch moment from the FPX single franchise player that has stayed with this orb for the past 3 years. And now he needs to charge. He finds Leave, and even if he doesn't do enough damage, he had the Karthus ultimate ready to finish off. But Care picks up his 4th kill of the game. They're going to carry the momentum through. He's got the resets. He's bouncing forward, looking for more.
He's him!
He's going to take out Aki, and he gets out alive. Oh, but the burn from Leandries takes his first death of the game, but I think Care is putting in his share of work for game 3.
Care might have been Icarus there. It's PP got with an engage.
PP Blossom onto the front line, but they can't get through to bot. Shanji flashes forward, trying to take him out. The Crocodile sinks his fangs in and takes out the Varus, but gets traded back. FPX find themselves still rocketing ahead of NiP.
And with the gold lead, we said that for FPX, they wanted to get into a game that was going to that 25-30 minute mark. We're at 18, and the gold is just barely even. Look at the item completions. As we go into this replay, we wanted to see Care take those signs of life and move forward, lead from the front. They get the spell shield off of Leave, which opens up for the explosive shot, and then look at how much damage is here. I mean, PP Got's trying to find the engage, but this fight is so desynced by NiP. Great job from FPX, and these kinds of games are the ones that kind of get the hopes up for the team. This is kind of, I feel, more of that ceiling and some of that punishment we were talking about for NiP. They're a team that play on the edge.
Yeah, like you said, the disrespect for how some of these objectives are being set up. NiP are just not giving enough patience. I don't know if it's patience or just totally overestimating what they can do in some of these
oh my god, wait, isn't
scenarios.
that flash? He's dead!
Oh, Care, no!
Care, no!
Oh, maybe, just a little overextended. Remember, he didn't have the flash after going super aggressive and Super Saiyan on the river fight just a couple minutes ago. NiP, don't waste a moment and punish.
What happened? We came out of the replay and everything's gone. They got the shutdown onto Care. I think I heard in the audience mic just the pure sound of shock coming out from everybody, because this needed to be the spot where Care shows respect. Look at where his team is on the map. There's no one here to defend him. So he loses out on his ultimate, still ends up going down. The turret falls as well, and that shutdown going over to Doinb, a player who he has been falling behind in this game, and while does have the feats of strength, he is not in that same position that we've seen him in the last couple of games.
And suddenly, the shadows of Game 4 against RNG are starting to slip back into the crevices of FPX's mind, where they had such a huge lead off of the back of Care's marksman champion. These picks cannot be carelessly given away, as another one goes over to the hands of NiP.
We're just too early in the river. Yes, the Otacon is on the bottom side, but the rest of FPX, they played for the mid wave. Shadow walks into river, walks into Fog of War, and it's a great setup for NiP. They're going to look to start this up. It is spotted by FPX. Doinb is splitting on the opposite side of the map and will not be able to join. Has no teleport for at least the next 30 seconds. So it seems like NiP are instead going to say, look, we've pulled them across the map. We got what we wanted. That's another turret for NiP.
Yeah. Goal secured for NiP. Yeah, the Otacon does not get burned now, and they're going to have to wait for the next opportunity to look to start it, but it's that pressure game. It's the map using to their advantage of how strong Doinb can be in a side lane, especially when you have 6 Void Grubs in your arsenal. It just puts FPX in such a chokehold of trying to decide, how are we allocating lane assignments? Who is answering who? Do we actually give up pressure for the objective and just give NiP a free way to take one of these off the map?
We've been counting items a lot during this game, and I'm looking at it. 2 items here for Shadow. He's now done with the Shadow Flame. We have the Otacon and the Dragon spawned here. Wouldn't be a dragon that I think is all that important when we talk about where we are in the game. It's 1 dragon a piece, so no one's close to like a soul or a soul point. And with Otacon right next to it, you imagine if we take a fight now, for FPX, there's some possibility there. You've got the Rage Blade and the Blade of the Ruin King. I think if you don't take one now as NiP, you're looking down the barrel of a 3-item Tristana and a potential upgrade coming in from Sheer, who's going to be ticking over to level 13. Another 5-10 minutes, and NiP find themselves in an unenviable position.
It's so tense. You can tell that the mood, the once jovial mood of FPX at the beginning of Game 3, where they had probably off a break, tried to hype themselves back up, and it was working to their favor in the early stages of the game.
They're starting
it's
it
no longer
up.
the same case. 3,000 gold down. NiP have teleported their members into the river, trying to jockey for position as Jue tries to send it for the engage, but Doinb with the call of the Forge God, PP God with the engage. It's
That's
flashed
one
by
though.
multiple members. Good turnaround by FPX as they take out the support. They look
They're
for
doing
Mitchell to
it.
leave. Here we go. Shadow unleashes the call of the Requiem as gets a lot of burst damage down into NiP, but the Strangler is still alive. Mid laner and top laner still alive for NiP. And it's enough to bully away the members of FPX since they do not have a jungler anymore. Shadow was taken out of the fight. A 4v3. FPX want to gamble their chances and do not give a free dragon over to the side of NiP.
They don't want NiP to finish this, but they do still need to catch up on some of these waves. You cannot be staying too far out on the map. For FAX, just take the fight win. There's no reason to continue to contest for this dragon. Just contend to your side lanes and just take the team fight win for yourself. It has been NiP slowly eking out goal leads every so often. While most of it here for FPX is in favor of Care, everybody else is down some varying amounts of gold, and the supports this game have had. It's been a bit rough for the both of them. PP God has not been able to really find that much of an engage, and Jue has been falling further and further behind when we talk about this. Great escape coming out from Care. And this damage, we started to see resets here. I think if Care is able to get maybe a Navori quick Flicker Blade soon, or whatever his third item is, no one's going to be able to get on top of this champion. The Buster Shot just makes it so difficult to get on him as a melee champ.
Yeah. And it's so tough to still jump into a team that still has Zyron and all abilities available. Oh no! Jue might have overstepped here. Death Charge being used on the very same champion. Maybe a turnaround.
Where's Care? He's dead though!
Pops the stasis, but Jue's gone. Care is forced to retreat over the side wall. Doinb now gonna pursue. Shanji also in the back line. The Renekton. This Crocodile's so scary, but they get pushed away thanks to the Buster Shot, and it gives Bat enough reprieve to be able to take him down with the piercing arrow.
That's the dragon though, going over to NiP, and it looks like they're gonna start up this Otacon. Shadow has just been getting caught after caught, with Jue as well. The two of them not really being able to sync up, and while Care leaves, they get the kills, and it's a flash from the Tristana, which isn't as big of an investment, but just thing to consider with how hyper mobile some of the members of NiP can be. You gotta look at this team fight. Care comes in off of a side lane, but who is able to hit here? Varus is not dealing all that much damage, misses out on an arrow there. Care's all by himself, and they're just isolated. Some of the bruisers here, Shanji just doing a lot of dirty work on this Renekton.
And even though he dies, he did his job, right? He completely pushed the back line out, and it gives enough space for the rest of his team to clean up on the pick that he found on the Shadow, which opens up the Otacon to be secured. And now, somehow, NiP find themselves in the same position that they always managed to bring themselves to in the prior two games. In the wins that they found against IG, this roster that, to be quite frank, we didn't really know what to expect out of them, especially with Doinb joining the roster. But man, for them to potentially be #1 seed of this group would really just shake up the entire ecosystem of LPL.
Yeah, big question mark especially, and it feels like most of the members, all of the members, are having their small highlight moments, right? We're talking about Leave with so many great performances like that Jhin game that we saw, or even PP God on his engage. Despite it, it feels like everybody's kind of picking up their weight. Baron's going to be started, and FPX are nowhere near. Shadow is literally going to the opposite side of the map. They're buying time here for Care, getting him vision, making sure that he's able to have time here. Did pick up the Navori Flicker Blade, so those explosive charges are going to be dealing a lot of damage and be coming out very, very frequently.
Yeah, I think FPX just know that there's no way that they can really contest a team fight right now when they're down this much gold, just trying to pick up any remnants of standing gold
God,
through
Baron
this turret.
6 grubs.
Baron, 6 Void Grubs. That's just so much structure damage that you can inflict in a rapid amount of time, and FPX can't just let that happen go freely. I mean, NiP, if they are given any time on these base structures, it's just gone in a heartbeat.
They only lost 1 turret, so not all that bad for right now. In 30 seconds with this Otacon, gonna be maybe looking here for FPX. Nice job from Doinb. Picks up the bottom lane wave, and once that's pushing, teleports in top lane so that they can continue to go. It's the Ornn ultimate from Doinb.
Doinb.
Oh, he fights Shadow!
Shadow once again! And the Karthus is not going to even pop the Requiem because I don't even think that there is a chance to find a kill trade back onto NiP. They get what they wanted, pushing in through the mid wave, unlocking that inhibitor, and they're going to do the same thing on the top side.
Oh my god, I mean, Care, his flash is not going to be up. Maybe they're going to make a defense, but still Baron here. Another mid wave is in tow. NiP can continue for this if they really want to, but recognizing that the dragon spawning in 3 minutes, they're going to just take their recalls. They have a lot of gold, I'm going to be assuming they're going to be spending in the time coming.
And the gold lead balloons even further, Alec. This Zyra from Aki has benefited greatly from the fact that FPX have not been able to push further on some of these engages. They're always on the back foot. It's Shanji and Doinb and PP God leading the charge, pushing them forward as Aki trying to get a little cheeky. Just clears out the entire minion wave, was hoping to see if he could snag a Tristana in the mix as well, but, you know, no harm, no foul. Still will be strong enough to contest for the dragon.
Yeah. No Zyra, maybe there's a, if they're willing to kind of force for it, they'll know that they're down at least 1 piece coming into that fight, but yeah, it's tough, and especially for FPX, it feels so bad because a lot of these games have had moments of greatness, moments of near being able to take down NiP. There's been some team fights that have been going in their favor, but it just, everything in between has not been particularly clean, and we'll see what this means for FPX. A loss here would mean that it is almost impossible for them to make it out of this group, and definitely looking towards Split 2 with so many young names, especially. Oh my god, Shadow's almost dead.
Chunked out again. Doinb has just been completely ruthless with all these hijacked ultimates, singling out the Karthus every single time they look for the siege. And now all 3 inhibitors have been taken down and completely exposed. Super minions, double super minions I should say, are going to be pouring in through every lane. And that just opens up the entire map. Nothing belongs to FPX at this point, Alec.
No, not even their Nexus. I think their Nexus is about to get repossessed by NiP. They might be taking them. They might be taking him home with them, and it's a good look for NiP. Yes, it still has a lot of the NiP isms that are going on. Random team fight in the mid game that puts us at jeopardy, and then a strong late game assault coming from long side lanes, playing forward and playing really deep around the map. I love that from NiP, and again, one of the strengths of a player like Doinb coming on through for the roster. So what we expected, I think, but still exciting nonetheless for both of these teams. For NiP, it would be them going forward and getting first in the group, getting access to double elim in playoffs. And for FPX, kind of a long road for a Split 2 performance.
Yeah, we have to remind everyone that this is, once again, pretty much a full rebuild of the entire roster, save for Care, who is, you know, still the remaining franchise player after 3 years. But Sheer, Shadow, and Sorrow in the jungle role, Bot and Jway are all part of this new roster, and PP God leads the charge with the Pop Blossom, just gets another flash out of Bot, no sums for the Varus. The rest of NiP pushing forward onto the Nexus Tower. Shanji flashing forward, looking for the flashless. Varus should be enough damage. Not quite to take him out, but NiP should have the firepower to burn through the Nexus Towers and burn through the Nexus all exposed. And all FPX can do is just watch as the base crumbles. Doinb styling on them, doing tricks on it. GG, well played. NiP close out the series 3-0.
FPX got the 3 items that I wanted to see, but the game had already ended. Varus had 3, Nexus is getting hit up, Tristana hit 3, not quite enough. Care could not carry the team over the finish line, and NiP getting business done here today. Looking pretty dominant going up against FPX, to be expected, but yeah, I think that was a good enough performance, and more of the same, I think, of what we're getting from this team, and scary stuff now as the first seed coming out of Group D.
I'm just saying, man. That is now the second Rise performance from Doinb, and this champion is looking actually very potent in the hands of Doinb. And I don't know if it's something that you invest a ban into going up against NiP in later series, whether it's, you know, the last series or, you know, going into playoffs. But it's definitely, that has to be something on other teams' radar once they start going up against them in the playoffs.
Such a dangerous team to play, especially you were talking about like how deep some of these champion pools go. Obviously, Doinb is a very famous person for kind of picking up weird stuff. We saw Kled in the 1v1. We saw his rise earlier today, but think of other players on this team. I'm specifically looking at top lane. Shanji has been someone who, while having some of his pocket picks, has always trended towards some of the off-meta, the off-branch stuff. I think of his Shyvana in the top lane that he was a very early adopter of. Something that could be kind of flexed around from multiple roles as well. So I'm interested to see what we get from more best of fives, and specifically against teams that I think are really going to push NiP, because this was, I think, Group D, when you look at it, the group of life. Felt like mostly anybody could get out, especially in that second spot.
Yeah. And that second spot is still up for grabs, but the race doesn't really look like it'll have FPX in the running for it. It's really up to either RNG or IG and their series, which we'll see later this week. Or hang on, I might be misspeaking.
What are you looking for?
Who is IG's last series against? Is it against
IG? Are going to be playing FPX. Yeah,
okay.
They had the RNG series where they won 3-1.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
My
So,
mistake.
and they play on the second to last day. They play on the 15th. So a week from now is going to be at. Oh, here's our updated schedule.
Boom.
Boom.
NiP.
Unfortunate. Pour one out for FPX.
Yeah, like, unless some really weird shenanigans happen where IG, like, I think what would have to happen is FPX would have to beat IG, and Ninjas in Pajamas has to beat RNG. Because if they drop the game, then it doesn't even matter, and because then RNG clinches that second seed, and if FPX drop it to IG, then, you know, IG is securely...
Yeah, so it goes down to game differential and then head-to-head. So
Yeah.
I don't think FPX would be winning the game differential, unfortunately. They did not pick up too many series wins. So obviously we have that performance. It was a 3-1 against RNG. I think FPX, unfortunately, going to be looking again, like we said, towards a split 2 performance. They have a lot of fresh faces. We were talking about the rebuild around Care yet again. So some more games to play. I'm glad that we were able to get to see more best of fives of this team, even though they may have not been able to push in very many games. But some of those early games, the first 10-15 minutes definitely felt, you know, playable for this team. Just think the team fights weren't all there.
Yeah, and it just seems like there are moments where they kind of not lose respect, but they just forget where everyone is on the map, and just understanding like, hey, it is really important that I'm not overextended in this side lane in this scenario. Or there's moments where, you know, like you called out in the team fights, you know, they have the clear momentum and they just push it a little too far, and not being content with the wins that they are getting.
NiP is also just, I think, a very greedy team sometimes. You talk about playing the side lane. That's a team where if you are not if you're not careful, suddenly you blink and 2 turrets are gone, right? We talked about the top lane. Even looking at game 2, I think with the Rise and Nocturne combo, they were playing so much around the map. Vision Dino was such a big part of that game. And while FPX, they wanted to scale, I think it's a really risky thing to take, especially against a team, like we were saying, that loves to play the map.
It is so terrifying when NiP is as, I don't want to say careless, but they are as fast as they are, because it, you know, it's a double-edged sword where, as you pointed out, sometimes they're not really respectful of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't like dive this far, but it doesn't stop them from doing it again. And then they just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over, and eventually that relentless pressure will cause even the strongest to buckle under the weight of it all.
Who do you feel is MVP? Because honestly, I kind of wish this was like Wild Rift, you know, the SVP. I feel bad for Care, man. There's so many good moments that, like, this passage of play was when the Care bucks were starting to get cashed in. People were buying high, well, buying low, and didn't end up kind of cashing out in this game. But I don't know. For NiP, it feels like, you think about Doinb, he started this game off 0-3, where it was caught out a couple times in the early game. Shanji on the bottom lane dive.
Yeah, like, a lot of the engages were made because of Doinb being able to steal such powerful tools like Call of the Forge God and Depth Charge, but I think it might go to Aki, because Remember at the beginning of this game, the whole game plan was FPX saying, screw you, Aki, you're not going to get far. You're not going to farm any of your jungle. We're going to get our Karthus super accelerated. How did Aki respond? He's like, you know what? I'm not going to even farm my bottom camps yet. I'm going to put Sheer in the dirt, and I'm going to try and accelerate my bottom lane out of success. And somehow, Aki bounces back, gets a full Medjay stacked up by the end of the game, and is such a hard-hitting mage, whereas Shadow is just getting picked on relentlessly by the rest of his team.
Aki took a very dangerous gambit, right? We're talking about the fact that while he's sitting there trying to prep the dive onto Sheer, or onto Shanji, like, there was not very many tools for him to actually play the game. I think it was a very difficult kind of spot to be in for the team. So I'm a bit worried.
Drumroll. Oh, I don't have, wait. Ah! They're not drumsticks, they're chopsticks, but... Eventually we will get there, chat. I think they're still elaborating. I don't know, Aki Doinb seems pretty strong in my book. Definitely not PP God, you know, not to hate on the Nico, but a lot of the engages got stuff, you know, and that's where, you know, the Carabucks were first starting to show with the Buster Shot punting a lot of these threats out. I'm gonna stop the drum roll. I don't know when the MVP vote is coming, bro. Oh, we lost Alk? Oh, okay. Solo cast again until Alk comes back. You know, we might close out of the broadcast. Look at that! Aki on the Zyra. Yeah. If you got a Medjay pretty much stacked up by the end of the game, it's pretty hard not to be looked at as the favorite. It's just such a strong way. Honestly, I should take Aki as inspiration for myself because I've played a bunch of solo queue games where I get invaded on, I get put behind super far. Yeah, we completely lost Alk. It's just me, guys. Hello. And yet Aki made the best of it. He recognized which lanes were, you know, in a prime position to be accelerated, plays towards them, acts completely selflessly, puts faith in his team, and then off the strength of that is given enough time to scale back into the game. So, you know, shout outs to Aki on that. And I don't know if Alk is going to be coming back by the time we close out the show. So I'm actually going to call upon my lovely producer, Kelsey, to see what is the game plan. Am I tossing it to the end of the show? Say that again. I did not hear you. Oh, can you... Oh, yeah. Hang on. Let me bring this up to the forefront. Guys, this is prime production at its finest. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another night of the LPL English broadcast. Before we go, we have a very, very special shout out. Thank you very much to our elite coffee supporter, Aaron Soup. Their pledged financial contribution helps level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every day. I don't know how the English escaped me, but it does not change the fact that Aaron Soup is the freaking GOAT. Thank you so much, Aaron, for all the support you do, as well as the rest of our coffee supporters and YouTube subscribers that have given so much back to us, as this is a passion project done with many hours put in just to be able to give you guys, you know, an English product for the LPL. But without further ado, that's the end of our show. Once again, congrats to NiP for a very dominant 3-0 series, and to FPX, you know, I hope this isn't the end of the road for y'all. They have one more series before the split one ends. More than likely, it will probably not end in them advancing to playoffs, but I think there's a lot of things that we can look forward to them being able to work on and improve on. And as Alk had remarked, this will be a team that looks very much forward to Split 2 to see what they can level up and improve on. And I believe Alk might have joined us at the last possible minute. So if he's here, I want to give you the floor. Any shout-outs you would like to give out, my friend?
Thank you to our production. Thank you to Rude earlier, who was here. Sucks that we've had a lot of technical difficulties, but a show like this is not possible with all of the volunteers. I'm sure you were talking about the coffee and all of the wonderful stuff that goes on here. It's been a long Lunar New Year break. We kind of hope that now coming back in, we can finish out the rest of the season strong. So thank you for everybody who's been here and dealt with all of the technical difficulties as well. Thank you to all of our moderators and the people running socials tonight, as well as Kelsey, for what has been a very unique night of LPL English.
Definitely one of the more fun nights we've had in quite some time for this project. But again, this has been a blast. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves all. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and see you next time.